So we're up to here in Hemshech Ayin Beis, Volume 1, Perek Reish Nun Vav. Let me begin with a short overview, summary. So in the explanation of the mamutza, of the interface between Elikus, Welt, and Elemus and Welt, which means between godliness and the structure of existence. So the bottom line is that the key component is Chochmah, and specifically Chochmah Stimah. And that was the whole Maimorim that explained it extensively. Chochmah Stimah, the concealed or the unconscious Chochmah. So that's the mamutza, because Chochmah on one hand is definitely part of existence. It comprehends things, breaks things down. On the other hand, Chochmah Stimah is unconscious, is a keli, and it connects to the Pnimius Abba, Pnimius Atik, connects to the deepest pleasure of the etzem, of the essence. So to explain Chochmah, how it's the mamutza and connects these two opposites, the Rabbi Rasha began Vahoye Uman in Tafrei Shayin Daled. How many Maimorim back is that? He began, right, the whole explanation of Shem Ma. Shem Ma, right here, Perek Reish Chof Tes, page Tov Samar Dal, 464. Began the explanation of Shem Ma. Shem Ma is Atzilus. Shem Ma specifically is Chochmah. That Shem Ma, as he establishes right away, is Mechaber Hovchim. It combines and integrates the opposites, Mashpia Mekabel. And from there on went a whole explanation, how do you bring together Mashpia Mekabel? And you'll see this is all Chochmah really. Shema is Chochmah. Chochmah Atzilus. Shema B'chlal is Atzilus, but B'protis is Chochmah Atzilus, like Atzilus of Atzilus. So he explained the Ches. So to explain that, he went into the whole discussion of the difference between Teyu and Tikkun. As we're now coming to the second half of it, Shema is Atzilus, is Tikkun. Shem Ban or Shem Sag is Teyu. So to appreciate how Tikkun combines Mashpia Mekabel properly, you have to see how it's not combined properly. He spoke in the last Perek. We learned the last few Maimorim back then. Ban and Sag is not the same thing. Teyu is generally Sag, but specifically has a Ban in Sag. Spoke about it a few pages back. So to understand Mashpia Mekabel the way it's supposed to be, he goes into the whole discussion how it's not proper. So in Teyu, it's not. To sum up the whole arichas, the whole length about Teyu was that basically two things are missing in Teyu that Tikkun repairs. One is that one level is not sevel, does not tolerate another. He says that's mainly mitzad the eris, mitzad the energy of Teyu. So the energy is so intense, it can transmit, but only in a way that no one else receives, no one's nana. And then the kelim of Teyu is also deficient because the kelim is supposed to be mashpia mekabel, eir and keli, and the other is b'chlal no kabbalah. Because the second reason is because there's no Teyu and Teyu there doesn't want to be mashpia and doesn't want to be mekabel. There's no mashpia zelazeh and no mekabel zelazeh. So the first aspect is no tolerance, and the second is no mashpia, no mekabel. Now he begins the discussion. Now how does Tikkun repair these two things? So Tikkun repairs first. And we're in the middle of the number one. Didn't get to number two yet. The middle of number one is that Tikkun repairs this dissonance of not being tolerated, that Beferish does tolerate. And to explain this, he begins with the discussion of Meichen and Midas. And this goes back, as you understand, is Chochmah. Meichen is Chochmah at the end. Meichen is Chochmah. So what's the difference between Meichen and Midas? So it starts with the Maimar Chazal, that le'elim yehei adam rach kekone, v'al tehei kasher ka'aretz. They should be rach kekone, flexible and yielding like a reed, and not hard like a cedar. Hard as cedar is midas, and meichen is the flexibility. To explain it, he explains what's meichen. Meichen, by nature, because it breaks things down in detail, it has the ability to be able to change. It doesn't have that type of akshonis. This is how it is, and that's it. Meichen, by nature, is a changeable thing because it breaks down details. So you can hear.
Sorry, because it breaks down in detail, because it's made up of many details.
Made up of details.
made up of details, and also breaks things into. I meant the same things. Yeah. And therefore, another detail can change things, or you hear a perspective from another perspective. Midas, on the other hand, is when in its nature, on its own, Midas is the way it is. That's how it is. Like you said, the Lashon Hashrasha. It's rooted. You're born Ayish Chesed. If you're born a person with the Teva of Chesed, you can never change that. And Ba'arichas explains that even if you can control it, or you can somewhat through Aveda transform it, but you still don't really change that Samida. No, you can't change the name. That's the whole point. Everything is yeah. That's the whole point.
How do you use Dayan if everything's changing?
A Dayan is with Seichel. That's the whole point of Seichel over Midas. We didn't get there yet. We're talking about Midas in its purest form. So Midas in its purest form cannot be changed. And Midas are free radical, if you like, in that way. But the Midas on their own, therefore, so if you really want to look at it this way, Teyu is controlled by Midas. Since it's controlled by Midas, the takeoff on Midas, and that's why there is no tolerance. Because if we only were driven by Midas and we had no Meichel, for example, the world of animals, even though they have Seichel, their Seichel is completely tough to their Midas, which means it's Seichel Hanikne, that's what it's called. Seichel to how to hunt. But a lion will always hunt. There's nothing you can ever do to change that. And that's the way it's meant to be in the world of animals. So therefore there is no type of peace between the animals that kill each other, etc., etc. Except there it's not evil because that's the way Hashem created the balance. But if human beings behave that way, that we were driven only by our midas, just for a moment, take away Meichen, you would not have the ability, you would have Teyu. There'd be no coexistence. Because every midah cannot tolerate another, and so on. But of course, Tikkun comes and corrects this. And here's the key word, the chalishus of midas. In other words, if midas... But he talks about chalishus of midas. I didn't see Lashon chalishus.
No, Kishkana, that's something else. That's when he describes what Meichen is. It's flexible.
Tavkuf in the bottom talks about chalishus. It's Meichen also, huh?
No, I don't think so. The type of Lashon. First line in Tavkuf Ches. Who creates this chalishus? It's Meichen. So Meichen does what it does to Midah. It takes the emotions that on their raw form will just be intense and never be changeable, and Meichen could weaken it. So to explain how Meichen weakens it, how's Meichen have the ability to weaken it? So this is where we are now in this Maimon Shlach, Tovkuf Yudalad. Or actually the end of last Maimon already, in Peder Creation Gimel, where he speaks, if Midas is higher than Meichen in such a takeif, how does it have the ability? So you have to say, because Midas have a way to become subjugated to the Manig. And Chochmah becomes a Meir Derech, the Lashon he used. So he gave an example. For example, the example he gave was, it's a Meir Derech.
Exactly what you said. I found right
where you said it. Someone tells his friend, here's a treasure. That's like Chochmah telling me this, here's a treasure. So b'meila, you know where to go. So all this was there already. In other words, Chochmah does not create midas, because that's the key thing. The question is, how could, if emotions are so intense, and they're unchangeable, because that's how you were born, you're Ish Chesed, Ish Gvura, so how can the mind do anything with that? So the answer is, the mind doesn't change the midas. What it does is direct them. So midah, think of a midah like a big, powerful ship. On its own, it can do a lot of things. What the Chochmah does is tell the ship where to go. Or in this case, like he says, it's instructions. It's instructions. Because midas, on the other hand, on their own, are free agents, free radicals. I keep using that word. That they just do whatever they want because they work by impulse. They don't work by any control. There's no direction. That's their downside. Chesed. Let's say a person is chesed. There'd be no meichen. He give. Even if he destroys, even if he doesn't without any cheshvan. Seichel will say, you don't have to give everywhere. Here's where you should do it. But it creates disciplines. It harnesses the midas. That's maybe the best word. So it doesn't take away from the midah. It doesn't say don't do what you have to do. It gives it some order. Some order.
It stays the same tkifus, just in the right direction?
No, not tkifus. No, it doesn't stay in the same tkifus. That's the point. By doing that, you're automatically weakening it because you're saying go here, don't go here. So in a sense, it's like directing. It does. I mean, later he's going to talk about the milus of it, but practically speaking, it has to weaken the intensity of the midah.
But is the method that it uses it somehow allows it to mate, so to speak, with Gevura, its chesed, and get to Ferris? Is that the mechanism? And if you look at, I mean, the way I look at Tanya and Rabbi Shulchan's explanation of Tanya, that's what really happens.
Here he says exact opposite, if I may. I don't know what he says there. Here he says, this last Pedic, Reish Nun Dalet, which we're leading up to, he says that midas on their own are yesh and mitzias. So because if let's put it this way, what happens when the midah doesn't want to listen to the seichel? Why should it listen? So it has to be weakened from its yeshes to listen. It says it clearly. That's the whole pit. Yeah, those two things. That it needs to do two things. It needs to be a slapshus of seichel into midas. And the second thing it needs is to weaken the midas intensity. It has to weaken the midas intensity. At this point, just these weakness is not a chsad. Well, since when? Tell you it's strong and the kalim break.
So when the kalim breaks, a lot of the energy goes down, and what's left can be manipulated by Michael.
They didn't describe the process yet. He'll describe that later. At this point, it's basically Moichin has a power, and midas subjugate themselves to weaken.
Yes,
To weaken the intensity in order for there to be scholarless. Bottom line.
And the nefesh hasichlis is the one that.
So therefore, he's in this Reish Nun Dalet. That's what he says, that midas on their own are he calls it clear, a chemer. It's a chemer, which means it's raw. It's like a raw form of matter, and sikuju seichel as a tzura, is the tzuri, as a form. The kuseichel be'etzem is an edler thing, is a much more refined force, where a midah is just a raw power, and so basically what happens is that the meichin brings the tzura into the chemer of the midas. It gives it shape and form and turns it into something that is useful. It's really, I mean, if you think about it, you look at a boot camp or your army training. You take raw people who have no discipline, and you turn them into unbelievable design and order and so on, and they become powerhouses. They know how to work with each other, etc., etc., etc. So now. Remember, this is critical. Let me say this. This is critical point here. The critical point here is, this is what when you learn it, you really see it. This is not some tangential point. This is the dynamics of how the interface works. Because if Elamis is midas, let's put it for a moment, who aligns that Elamis should be aligned to Elikus? It's the Mayach. The mind becomes the force that takes raw human beings like us, who are driven by narcissism and self-interest, and yesh, or in either issue is bali midas, and everybody does whatever their midas says. And meyach, what it does is the shem ma creates the bittul of weakening that yeshes, but not destroying it. Because if it destroys it, we don't have an interface again. It has to take the yeshes of elam haza, of people, and turn it into, harness it to be toward elikus. Who does that? Meichin does that. So this is directly an application of the whole interface of all that we were learning about Chachma being the Mamutza, which is really the power of Chabad. If you think about it, this is Teres Chabad. This Chabad is the power of the mind, is the force that allows a yesh of this world to become a keli for Elokus. That's the ultimate interface. That's the whole point there. That's why it's such. That's why he's summing it up here. Not summing. I mean, he's elaborating. The whole, which we're going to learn, Ibri, the whole development of how those midas are trained, and step by step is how we retrace those steps that we were talking about. How you get from here to there. How do you get from a yesh chemer, which has always been the question of all philosophers and psychologists. A human being is self-interest. He's an animal. The only difference is an animal with the manners. Push comes to shove, human beings will kill each other. Chassidus doesn't hold that at all, because. And I mean, even if you think of it not a chassidisha approach, take a musadik approach, it also ultimately sees Elam Hazar, or human being, as being a selfish person, an animal. Shiflus Adam, that's what they focus on, how inferior we are. So what do you do? So you need to break the chemer. The two examples there. They beat the horses till either they're no longer horses or till they know they're horses. Yeah. So the higher level is the higher level is actually not they're not to be horses. In other words, the point is not that we accept that human beings are inferior, but they can become servants of Hashem by Bal Korch, which then the focus would be on Musar and on Iskafia and so on. That's step one, if necessary. The ultimate goal is Isapche, transformation, that a human being can become a real Isha Leki. There is the ability to be a divine person on earth, in Elam Haza and so on. And the ultimate schar is Chis HaMesim in Neshamas Begufim, not Neshamas on Gufim. All the applications of Dira B'Tachtenim come down to the interface, that you really can ultimately connect. However, just to say connect doesn't mean that your Yesha suddenly become Elikus. There's a lot of work. And Meichen is essentially the trainer. You could think of the trainer. Meida Derech, that's why that line is critical. It's the Meida Derech. It teaches us and trains the Midas to be aligned. In Tehu, the Midas are wild, and then they just do anything they want, and they ultimately break. In Tikkun, this is the first part of Tikkun. This is the Eidus of Tikkun, not the Kelim. The Eidus, that it harnesses the energy toward doing something that's productive and constructive and the way it's supposed to be. And Meichen does this, as he explained, through its training, essentially. Now, he moves on to the Ibr Yunika Meichen, that there are 3 stages in this training. Why is this so critical? Because if there weren't, again, it wouldn't be Tachtein. We have to deal with a child, as you speak. The first levels. You don't just suddenly become a disciplined person. So, in the last Perek, Reishon Hey, he talks about the 3 stages in life. 3 stages we all go through. It's called Ibur Yunika Meichen. So let me sum up what that is. As he said it, Ibur Yunika Meichen literally means, Ibur means pregnancy, gestation. Yunika is stage when a child is nursing. We're talking simply Begashmis. Ibur is when a child is in its mother's womb. The second stage is the nursing stage. And Meichen is when the child turns into an independent, thinking adult. Now, obviously it's not exactly, he doesn't speak about it here in what age is what stage, but does speak about it in other places. There's in Hilchos Talmud Torah even talks about what stage a child is. You teach this, you teach that. What you can expect from a child psychologically. Not sure, a child just born, you can't expect anything. But in Aveda, so we learned in the last Perek, so I'm summing up the last Perek, and we should learn this. Let's learn the kids from here. So bottom line is, what are we talking about now? We're talking how Meichen is training the Midas to become mature, basically. So Teyu is immature Midas. In a sense, a person is born with a power and is just unharnessed. And Tikkun is the repair of that, which will create the ability for his skalus. So it will weaken the two.
Raw midas versus immature midas. Raw.
Yeah, raw and immature midas is in Teyu. And Tikkun creates mature midas. So the midas are still there. And the Agdolos Hamidas, right. The Agdolos Hamidas. And this is the 3 stages, like he says. What does he say? The Lashon is... This is
never changing, like you said before, what Im calls that, with this Meichen guiding the Midas and harnessing the Midas and controlling the Midas, your Etzem Midas is never changing. The Etzem is never changing, so where's the interface if it's never changing? It's ultimately staying the same raw.
First of all, remember, a mid is not Ra. Who says that it has to be changed to make it into...
But it's not...
A midah could be a chesed. Let's put it this way. If a person does chesed like in Tehu, it's chesed of Yishmael. Okay? So there it gives, even to people that shouldn't be given, and it's spoiling, etc., etc. Then a midah of Gedusha, from Avram, it says, Yishmael yotzim mimenu, right? Avram yotzim mimenu Yishmael. It comes from Avram. Yeah. It's an example.
They give so much.
I don't know if they all give today, but they have. Yeah, let's put it this way:
that's what he gives.
No. Not only that, when it comes to areas of, let's call this sexuality, they do give a lot. They have a lot of wives to give to. That's not my example, by the way. Shtufizim is an example of chesed d'klipa. Yeah, because they're very hard. Hard-blooded. The opposite would be a kalte. Is Moshe Gvura d'klipa, Gvura de Esav. Is Gvura de Teyu is the opposite. It's withholding.
Northern European.
Like the guy that said he'd rather have his. You don't want to insult anyone, but the guy says he'd rather have his daughter marry a Moroccan than a Persian. I think because he wants it to be better be bitten by death, killed by death, by this than by hunger. But the point of the matter is, we're talking about archetypes that don't exist today. for the record.
Disclaimer.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're on record, yeah.
No, but the point, no, and I'm trying to say is that Gvura de Klippe is also, Gvura de Teyu, not Klippe. Gvura de Teyu is also Kedusha, except it's on Asof. It's like discipline bli Gvul. Like Chesed bli Gvul. So this one came from Avram, that's Yishmael. This one comes from Yitzchak. So they both come from Kedusha. So the mid itself, remember, the mid come from as a Sfiras Agnus Lufnei Tzimtzum. That's why, the mid is not created in Elam. The mid is not. The problem is when the mid is. Remember, we talked about the alignment in Elam Mateyu. You had to have this type of intensity. Tikkun, what Tikkun does harnesses, and I'm sure he talks about it later. Who says the midah has to be changed? Chesed doesn't have to change. Chesed has to be harnessed and directed. That's what has to happen, and then it does its mission. But remember, we're still talking the scholars of Edis. When it comes to the scholars of Kalim, you'll see there's a lot more going on. There's much more. Here's just the first step. So bottom line is like this. So the this really is the whole part. This part of the Hemshech for sure, where we be going back from Shavuos Ayin Gimel, that Meichin or Chochmah Stimar or Chochmah is the power of the interface. Here he explains it more in Inyan. The Chochmah Stimar, that's the level. Teira and Atzilus and Ak and all that. Now he's talking about it in real time. This is how it really happens. That the Chochmah, so Hagdolas Hamidus is through the three general levels, Yibur Yanika Meichin. So we'll start from the Kitzur of Perek Reshon Hey and we'll go to Reshon Vav. How's that? Okay? So Kitzur is on the bottom of page Tov Kuf Yud Zayin. We're doing the Kitzur of chapter Reshon Hey 255. Uprote Hagdola Hein Yibur Yanika Meichin. In Tavshin Gimel, where he cites some of this, he brings also that this, some places it says it's the three levels of mutve, murgish, and muskel. So just for the record, mutve is like teva, murgish is already a shtickle feeling, not by teva, with a little aveda, and muskel, of course, is like meichen. That's in the Maimorim of Shmini Atzeres Simchas Torah, Tavshin Gimel.
Which is the three things it says here. Mutve is Edoah.
Yeah.
Murgesh is Haskome Belibe.
Right.
And what do you say the third one?
Meichen.
Meichen is Mechabad Shebin which is
Yeah. Well, that's all the three in Yanika Gufa. In the Hi Gufa. Yeah. So let's learn this Perek. Remember, this Perek traditionally covered the first of the three, Yanika. Perek Nation Vov is going to be, Ibur. Sorry. Reshon Vav is Yanika, and Reshon Zayin is Meichen. So just for a little order here, each Perek covers one. With all this being overwhelmed, at least there's a little order here. There is method to this.
No. Every chapter is another subject.
Yeah.
It's an encyclopedia of subject.
Yeah. So the Kitzur. Uprote Hagdola Hen Ibur Yanika Meichen. Ibur is Nehi. So Nehi is Ibur. Yanika will be Chagas, and Meichen will be Chabad. Okay. So now we're addressing Nehi. Tachlis HaKatnus ve'ena b'tziyur Adam. So Nehi is the lowest level. Generally speaking, Nehi is also Midas. It's also Midas. But when you say Nehi, the Midas are essentially in a functional mode. They're doing what they have to do. It's not deeper feelings. So a little baby, born baby, or even in child's womb, in Ibur, also has Midas. It has feelings. But it's not what we would call feelings of a human being that we know. You say something to me, I have a feeling, and so on. It's a feelings of existence. It feels pain, it feels hunger, and so on. But there, remember, everything is being fed by the mother. So you don't hear. But we know a baby. In other words, the child has. It's already a life, but it's in a very fetal, very very concentrated form. So nothing is yet developed. So it's a fascinating study, because everything that's going to come later comes from that stage.
Even his position is that the head is hidden.
Is mekupel, right? Exactly.
Nehi are his feet.
Exactly.
His feet.
Right. Everything, the head and the heart are all in the. So it's basically functional midas b'tziyur adam. And Tavshin Gimel he actually adds. He says that he uses netzach heid. He says netzach and heid are just haskama bulvad, like he says here. In other words, in aved it's just the idea of determining to do so and so, or acknowledging heidah. Like he says here. So it's not b'tziyur adam yet, both begashmis and also in ruchnis. For who ian ha'ifanim, Eifanim, remember, is elam ha'asiyah. Just for the record, generally speaking, when you speak in the elamus, the Sfiris, it goes like this. Nehi is Asiya, Chagas is Yitzira, and Bria is Chabad. And it all obviously originates from Atzilus. But that's generally the structure as well. So Elam Efanim is always Elam Asiya. Srofim is Bria, and Chayes HaKedesh is Yitzira. But since it's in the stage, it's also development. Remember, we're not talking about a seed. We're not talking about preconception. There is a child in the physical example. There is something that's alive, that's growing. That baby, that fetus is going to become a child one day, and independent, and basically what you see at the table here is a bunch of people who want fetuses. Right? Everyone on this earth. So it has k'tzas mechem. The nehi shebenihi. So now he explains. The nehi shebenihi. He's going to three things in nehi itself. Nehi shebenihi, chagas shebenihi, and chabad shebenihi. So nehi shebenihi, which is the unique. Let's put it this way: ibur shebe ibur, who shemeida mitzad hayediyah klolis. This is now an aveda. Now we're not talking gash, we're talking aveda. It's hidah. Hidah comes from some type of knowing. Like he says, you may not know how wise that man is, the wise the great chacham is, but you acknowledge he's wise. Like they say, there are people who don't know, and there are people who don't know that they don't know. Here at least you know that you don't know. So it's a stickle knowledge. Yeah. Right. It's Yisrael Duchman saying, "Mein Rebbe is so good." Yeel Shmeichel meant that my Rebbe is so good. So now you understood. Okay, we use these now eternalized in Ayin Beis as a mashal. Yeah, right. V'chein meidim anachnu loch sh'atem mahava akel. That's the mashal. In Nimshal, it's when we say meidim anachnu loch, we're made that we acknowledge that the Eibishter created it all. Hagam sheini yedei klal inei savus. Even though we don't understand. We don't know, meaning understand, comprehend, or the hisavos. Nevertheless, we could sense there's something big going on. It's like you sense something big is going on, and that's about it. But there's some sense. So there's some. Chagaz denihi, level 2. Heskim chozik besur merav aseitev. This already comes into not just awareness, a makivdik awareness that something big is there, but it's also a heskim that you determine, which has an element of feelings now. Like he says right on top of the page. Heina midas hashayochim lepeil. That's what we're talking about. It's not midas, fully developed midas yet. But it's shayochim lepeil. That means you have enough feeling to say, I'll avoid ra and I do good. I'm just looking here.
I think Heskem also gives you that there's a small element of meichen in that.
It has to be. That's the connection.
Heskem is that.
So he says, I'm looking in the Bible itself. It hasn't become his nature, and therefore it's like that fest away. So, but he's still at a stage where he's not developed. There's no Aveda. He did not refine himself to a point where you could say he mamish, has become primius dike, never going to do ra asur mera nasei tev. But here, he resolves to do it. So it's like more in action.
Why is that?
He calls it midas hashayachim lepeil. It means because you feel enough to want to do that, because it comes from a feeling. Why? Now he says clearly. He says right after that, because if not, you wouldn't. Why would you do that if you didn't feel that way?
Right.
If there was no feeling for it, why would you suddenly make such a? No, we're not talking about Kabbalah sale by order. You're talking about you have some sense. It's like just like Nehisha b'Nehi is a sense of something great, except it's just that. Here it's a sense that you should be committing to something, but it's not yet. It's got
It's a level higher, obviously.
For sure it's a level higher. Right, exactly. So Heskem Chaz B'Sum the behechrich yesh behelem ez aviyir moker mitzvus mitzvus. You have to say that there's something behelem, some type of feeling of love, and let's see if we can find an example.
No, behelem.
I'll give you an example.
Behelem is the meichen.
No, he says yes. Behelem ez aviyir. No.
That's what I'm trying to say. There's a little bit of meichen.
There has to be.
The whole idea here is to show
developing
that
meichen.
And I'm just saying the lashon of the Maimer hechrich sheyesh b'zei seidu aviyir ve'ez hergish aliki. The Imlei came Ayin Beis haheskem.
The word is conscious. The first
But no,
stage-
but you see, you have to remember he's talking about Chagash Shabanihi. That's why he has to emphasize that there's feelings, because it's Chagash Shabanihi. The whole thing is driven by Meichen.
Right.
Right.
Let's make that clear. There's no Hagdolah without Meichen.
Exactly.
If not, Midas just stay in their own place.
Right.
Meichen is, again, the captain of the ship.
Right.
Think of it like Meichen sends the orders.
Yeah.
Because let's put it this way, God forbid, if the central nervous system, if there's no message going from the mind to the body grow, even on a biological level, the body stops growing. So just like the child develops, so it's Meichen is guiding the process. But how is it guiding it? By in a sense, bringing in more midas. See, the beauty of this is, you go back to the interface, the beauty of this is that you're mamish seeing in the laboratory here, you're seeing like in real time how Meichen is actually working lefi hakelim. Because the question you could ask is, you want to talk like a klotz kasha. Adam and Chava were created when they were Ben Esrim, right? They were 20 years old. Why? Because they could fulfill the Dira B'Tachtenim right away. Why go through a whole process of because the world was created a mature world. La'avda l'shamra. So if Adam and Chava were created little babies, that's what it says. They wouldn't be able to start doing their Aveda. But after that, everybody's a baby born. So you could ask the question, why are we created baby? Why don't we just pop out? Not even 9 months. Adults. The Eibishter could have done it that way. It doesn't have to be. It's nice, all this process, but it could have been that we're chatchila adults, because then you wouldn't have the acclamation, the true slapshus. The interface would not be complete. Here, it's really you are developing from mamish nothing into this, Gashmis and of course beruchnis. It's the same reason why Matan Torah wouldn't happen right away. Chassidus asks, if the whole says B'Zeish is B'Shvil Yisrael, B'Shvil HaTorah, so why is the Torah given 26 generations later? Give Torah to Adam and Chava. Eibishter gave them a mission. He gave them Gan Eden. Love the L'Shamra. Give them a Torah. They were Mekayim the Torah even Kedim Shalei Nitna. But formal Matan Torah didn't happen. Which means the Bittul HaGzera that Chassidus talks about, of Elyenim Tachtenim, didn't happen before. Why not? Bima Vatel did the Gzera. Don't have Elyenim Tachtenim. Give them the power, give them a Torah, let them be able to do in Lashon of the Nigla, to make from Elam Haza Chefza de Gdusha. Why do you have to wait, how many years? 2,448 years. It's like half of history. Almost 2,500 years. It's 26 generations. The answer is because then it would not have been on our terms. It would have been Agili Mumayla. So the Eibishter wanted it should be Adam Mechava, and they should have Yitzhahara, and then the world should forget. And then comes Avram, and also not in one day, he goes through stages, first he's 3 years old, and then 40 years old, and 70 years old. And then Yitzchak and Yaakov, and says Chassidus, and Teres Chaim, the whole Arichas, how the whole Sefer Bereshis is how they prepare the ground for Matan Torah to happen. So they create the Keli and Aveda, that now they grew. It's like Ibr Yanika, in a sense, Ibr Yanika that leads to Meichen, the Bar Mitzvah, which is Matan Torah. So that reflects in every one of us that we're not born babies. We're not born adults. We're born as a baby. The chinuch, yeah. So this is the whole thing. Chinuch, you train a child at one day old is the most is unique. It's just doing things. That's all it's doing. Pure hate. In Aveda, it's pure Heda. And then a child, let's say at 5 years old, you can tell the child, listen, you say Maidani, or even earlier than that. Does the child have developed midas that on its own would do it? No, the teva of the child is to go play. Like he says, it's not a teva frumkeit yet. It's not, you're just training a child. But a child, even before bar mitzvah, you could train a child to be mekayim mitzvahs and have a certain sense of feeling. So in that sense, that's unique. Bar mitzvah is when the meichen start entering. Obviously, meichen really what he's talking is going to be ben esrim. When the gadlus ha-meichen comes in, but meichen starts coming in. That's what we say. Meichen. That's why you start putting on film, because the child can control himself. That's the halach of it. But then in Inyan, it's because the child can take a chrayis now on his behavior. Till bar mitzvah, bas mitzvah, basically you cannot hold a child responsible because their midas are in control. They don't have meich shal ta'alev. Afterwards, zecha shayla. But at least officially, we're supposed to have.
But here you're talking about with an Iber,
nechanami, because there's a scholars within Iber, right? Exactly. Now I'm saying that
you're generalizing it.
You're generalizing. Everything
yes.
works microcosm.
Yes.
That's all.
So to have the chagas in Iber,
Remember, in Aveda he's talking. A fetus, a child in the Ibur, it probably also has to be. First of all, that's really they do the three trimesters. And there's no question a child, the last stage is not like the first stage, not the first 3 months. But remember, now we're talking Aveda. So in Aveda, stage 2 is, so the Helm, there is so Meichen is guiding the process, that's for sure. But Meichen is very behelem in the stage of Ibur, a little more begali in Yanika, and obviously much more begali in Meichen. In Ibur Gufa, the same thing. So in stage 2, there's behechich, you have to say there's some sense of feeling. And then it's the equivalent of a young child in chinuch age, going to school and you're training them to start having av and yira. So you could say, you can't compare it to av and yira of an avid, that's an adult, but you can't say there's no feelings at all. A child has feelings. You can have a feeling toward the Rebbe Rashab, talking about Chav Cheshvan, cried when he was 4 or 5 years old. Why doesn't he see a lakus? So good, the Rebbe said many times, butzen mekat fiyadi. So from that, what he's going to grow into. But still, if Yarachim, he cried. That means there is a hergish. And Chabadanihi, the third level, is Ava V'yira Shebetfunus Meiche Talumis Libe She'ena Asoga Mamish. It's from Tanya. Chabadanihi is again, it's motions, it's Ava V'yira, but it's Ava V'yira Shebemeichen. So that's why it's Chabad. That's what it is. So that's Chagas.
No, I'm saying Chagas. That's Chagas is big.
Yeah, one second. So here he brings from Tanya, right? He says, "As a katnus made." I'm just looking. So this is already. It's not Avos Hashem bezgalus libe boyer. You don't have here that his heart is flaming with love, with Ava. It's Ava Misoteres, but this is already more. He already understands the godless of Elikus, like he says here. Beizin Yoni Bekula Kamei. One second. Lefisha Einei Hasaga Mamash. Beizin Yoni Bekula Kamei Kalach Hashav. Bitla Eres Vaflos Atzmis. So it's not like the first level. The first level just recognizes there's something great. That's it. Nothing more. Here, he already understands that there's a bitl, there's some comprehension.
It's interesting. He goes, the Meichen gets greater and the Spilus gets a little less in each level. For it, the end result is always bitl. He says, Mispal Ktsas by the Chagas, and then he goes, Eze Hergesh by...
So he says the Lashon, U'makol Mokim HaRazeh Etzlei B'yediyah Shecheshe B'zeh V'yediyah Shekachu U'margish Tasa'in Ktsas.
1 second. The same thing he said before about the Yediyah in Yesh Me'ayin, here he has a Yediyah in Ava V'yireh. And he says it clearly. Look, Vareze, look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7 lines from the bottom. Vareze K'moy HaYediyah Dibri Yesh Me'ayin, Sh'nis Bor Elil, K'mei Keinu B'yediyah Zu. You see it?
Yeah, right here.
7 lines from the bottom.
Yeah.
So the same Yediyah you had before in Yesh Me'ayin, here you have the Yediyah in this Ava V'yireh.
It makes a big chiluk. It goes another line or two. It's a big chiluk between the two.
What was that?
It goes another line or two. It makes a big chiluk between the Meichen.
Yeah. So what's the chiluk? And the chiluk is? How do you say the chiluk? Let me see here. Because here's already his galus of the sum is galus. Here's beginnes hameichen umidis. Actually, there should. So what's the if
where?
It is mine. Which line is it?
Makol Mokim, because there the only comparison to before is like he has the idea, but here Makol Mokim had his etzlei be idea shecheshav bezev idea shekachu or margish she'inin ktsas. That does not exist in the first, because that's the difference. That's Yinika Shabini, that's Nihi Shabinihi, this is Chabad Shabinihi.
Where's the Nihi part of the Chabad? It's made in the end. It always has to be in the Nihi end of it.
He doesn't use the word Meida, he uses more that it's katnus. It's basically the common denominator is katnus. That it's in a very, very diminished and very... That's in katnus.
Isn't the katnus in the midas and not in the making in this case?
It seems that it's in both, because he says, Yideya, it looks like it's both. It's both, I mean, let's not be technical. Let's apply it to ourselves. Let's think, for example, an example. The first one is just pure Haidah. But not Hidah Stam nothing. We're not talking about Hidah that's blind. You recognize there's something great. You recognize there's grace, something big created this whole thing. Fine. That's Hidah. That's Nehisha B'Nehi. There's really very little Giluyim there. But there's some Ktsas Hergish, as you could put it. There has to be something. The second level is the Midas start developing, is something, there's a Heskim, and there has to be some Aviyira for you to make that Heskim.
Where's the Nehi part of that?
I would say the difference.
But it's only a Heskim.
Now, you know what? Let's talk. Let's talk a talk.
Oh,
You
it's an
talk.
end result.
One second. Let's talk a talk. Child psychology. What's the difference between a 3-year-old recognizing there's God and a 6-year-old? There has to be a difference. I'm not talking about recognizing what to eat. I'm talking about godliness. A 3-year-old, it's going to be much, much minimal. A 6-year-old doesn't have a. I mean, however you would explain the difference between that explanation. That's how I mean. You can analyze it several ways. A 6-year-old is getting closer to what's going to become later. You know, that's how I see it. And a 12-year-old would be the Chabad Shebenihi. I mean, it's not a wild example. That's what we're talking about. Because you're talking about in Ibur Gufa, in development Gufa, in that stage Gufa, 3 levels. I don't know if those ages are exactly the right ones that would correspond, but the idea would be that difference. So it would be fascinating to apply this to take and show 3 examples of it. In our own Aveda, it comes down to this. Most of us are probably stay by Nehi the rest of our lives, you know. But once in a while, we decide we feel.
How would you explain the...
One second, Nehi b'Nehi is Heidah. The first one, Heidah, is pretty simple.
Nehi means Heidah Pashut. I mean, that's the concept of Nehi as a...
In general, yeah.
So there has to be Nehi. So there has to be...
Yeah, but remember the word, but...
Chabad Charas too. There has to be Nehi element also, which is the end result, which is the Heidah...
No, you said that. I understand. I didn't hear that. I didn't see him use the word Heidah by this, so...
In the beginning, I think
he did say on all 3?
I don't know in the beginning, but what Nehi is in general.
וחידוש שבפרוטיס שיש גם בעיבור בחינס חב"ד חרס נהיו, ומאחר שיש בזה מדרגת פרוטיס, הברך שיש בזה קצת מייכן. Bottom line is there's ktsas meichen in all of them, that's for sure.
Okay.
The nehisha b'nehi, okay, that's so there's the ktsas meichen in all of them,
Would you say an experience?
and there's also ktsas midas in all of them. That's what it comes down to. Okay, not well, actually not in the first so much, but in the next 2. The real question, the difference between 2 and 3 is essentially one is a heskem chazuk that's basically means that he senses something. There's some aviyah, but the main focus is that he just determines that and determining. And the third one, there's already a little appreciation of yesh ma'ayin, and that there's some, you know, the dynamics here. That's what it comes down to.
It's an experience of the human being. Would you say Nehi is until Bar Mitzvah, and then from Bar Mitzvah to 20 is the Chagas, and then from 20 on onwards?
There's sometimes, you know, this is part of in Eitz Chaim he talks about the ages. Sometimes that's how it's said. Yeah, that Ibur is till Bar Mitzvah, and then Yonik is the next, and then Gmeich Legal is after Esim Shana. But many places. I once wrote up something about it. There's many places it doesn't speak like that but real technically more Ibur is pregnancy. Yonik is the stages till Bar Mitzvah, even though it's not nursing technically, but that's still
Nourishing.
it's still this. And Meichen begins with Bar Mitzvah. In Meichen itself, there's also levels, obviously. So this is, I think it says one place that age, but this can be looked. Remember, Meichen, real Meichen is talking about real Meichen, the godless here. We're not talking about just about mitzvah bacher, you know. But in Indian, you have to again, just like with Atzilus the Kolos, Atzilus the Pratis. Every stage has everything, but there are stages, and you could point them. And there's in Alter Rebbe's Hilchos Talmud Torah, there's no in the Hagos there. He talks about, you know, Ben Gimel and Ben Hey, you know, the different development. What you to teach a child.
Each stage is all 3 of them.
Yeah, but each stage has. But I'm saying when it comes down to it, you could quantify it. I mean, and also even a day. Can you say when a child goes over from Ibur to Yonik? You know, what day is it? When you turn 3, when you turn 13, exactly that day. You convey a day, but it's not. You know, it's a period. It's really the stage.
It's the fact that we stay this our whole life. The Stama.
Yeah.
How old I mean, saying because he says I'm so tennis. We reach a level of higher than I'm tennis.
Look, the fascinating thing is that if this is written up properly in English, and you work with child psychologists who really know their stuff, you can develop a whole theory of child psychology based on this that would have application to chinuch. Remember, our chinuch is who thought it through. Is it based on what? You know, there's a few things we know from Chos Talmud Torah. A lot of it is taken from Goyish, from the Goyish system. It's not taken from from a Teiradika approach of chinuch.
You stick with the same method in the Ibra stage and a different method in the Chagas stage. The idea that teaching.
No, but at first is understanding
stick
it.
with the
No, if like we
you
don't
understand the way he thinks, then you
the problem, right? Exactly. The problem is we don't know how children really think, because adults are opposing their way of thinking on children. So how do children really think? I saw my sister in Manhattan has a Down syndrome child, the youngest child. So today there's early intervention in New York is gewaldig. They have excellent service. They make it available. So when she was Down syndrome, one of the problems is also muscle degeneration. Their muscles. So they start very early. 3 months old. You'd never believe this. A therapist is looking at the child and making with the mouth. You ever see a child copy someone at 3 months old? You don't see children copy. They maybe see something. And after, my sister told me, the woman said to her, watch. She said, watch. After 5 minutes around, the child starts mimicking. And she said it was a complete accident. Somebody tried it. No one even believed that a child is capable of that. See, why would you even try it? Someone tried it something like 15 years ago.
But only Down syndrome or in general?
No, any child.
In general. Oh, okay.
Any child. But any child, you don't need to do that because you don't have to work over, dafka work. Every child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you see, she said it was by accident. Someone simply was attempting to see if a child will ever. But you give up after 2 minutes. Who's going to start? Try. And so what other things are happening in a child that we have no clue? When the Rebbe speaks, I was always fascinated. Those sikhs, when he started speaking about bringing children to Aseres Hadibros, and it was the first time the Rebbe spoke mamish when they're born, without even anything, And he brought the Gemara with Asher Iladate, what was that his mother would take Vigala to the Beis Medrash, even though the child was mamish just born. Yeah, okay, that's a pregnant woman, but yeah. But I'm saying the Rebbe was speaking, and the Rebbe said then that you surround the child with Kedusha. The Rebbe said, and people will ask. I remember it was Tav Shemem when the Rebbe came out with it. And I remember the Rebbe said, people's asking that the child understands this and that, and the Rebbe said, "Wer weiß was tut sich bei a Kind?" What do we know? Because it doesn't communicate like we don't communicate. You think that child is completely oblivious. And if you read, I read, read child psychology books from 1940. You go mushuga. There's lines like this: a child until 5-6 is dumb, deaf, and mute, for all practical purposes. Yeah, deaf, dumb, and mute. It makes no difference what happens around.
Now they're finding out that everything after 5 is worthless.
Exactly. Deaf, dumb, and mute. That's the expression. I saw it in a few books, and therefore, a child is basically an adult in the making. Versteht? By us, Punktverket. The child is the closest to them, and then we screw it up.
You could say the age of chinuch starts at 5 officially.
Yeah.
Chinuch is how to
it's already mechandik.
form it.
Yeah. First of all, chinuch starts from the point of view from pregnancy and even before.
It also says 5.
Yeah, because that's chinuch begali, but chinuch starts from day one. But I'm saying, so it's not just mumbo, like surround the child with helik kazachen, or a child, a child in cheder, that the sweet on the letters. I remember the sikha that Rebbe speaks about malach machal. So Rebbe said, how could you lie to a child? The child will grow up. Well, no, it's not malach machal. And the Rebbe says it is malach machal. No, it's nishtalshon to the hand of a parent. Just like chesed atzilas comes into, is when you give tzedakah, it's chesed atzilas. That's what the Rebbe says, mamash. So these are things it has a slapshus and real practical application. I think it could be unbelievable if someone really did this properly. It could be revolutionary. But it's not just this; it's everything in Chassidus. But here you have it like a real breakdown. All you need is one excellent guy that takes this and turns it into a model and goes for it. It could revolutionize education. I have no question in my mind. Doesn't mean there's nothing that they don't know today, but you could take quantum because who else? Only a Rebbe that sees things the way it's in the Shadish can tell us what's going on in that child. Who else knows? Everything else is speculation, I guess.
The same thing applies to non-Jews as to Jews?
For all practical purposes, yeah. This development for sure. I just want to tell you, just this an aside, but it's important because people, I think that the way we were taught, and I don't include myself, about non-Jews is completely not the Rebbe Shitta. And we were taught very limited in a very primitive way what the Shitta of non-Jews. And I'm not saying it's not based on Chazal and stuff, but it's very primitive.
And the word
Russian defense.
It's 2,000 years of being killed.
tremendously horrible anti-Semitic attacks for years and years.
Yeah, but I want to just say something about Tanya. Someone just asked me. I did a lot of research to this, you can imagine, because when it's an aside, but maybe it's relevant here. When I resigned toward a meaningful life, and it was already getting closer to, starting to write the chapters, I had a big dilemma. Well, actually, it was early on. And the dilemma was, I was writing a book. It was going to be, I know, published by a Goyish publisher, going to all bookstores, which means more non-Jews could have access to than Jews. And that was like not a common thing. And I was thinking, so who am I writing it for? Am I writing it for Jews? Secular Jews, with Jews and stuff like that. And because if I'm writing for Jews, then it should have every chapter, should have Torah and mitzvahs. Learning Torah, Shabbos, Kashrus, Mikveh, everything. So I had this dilemma. And I remember I went to all our great G'delim. I went to Rabbi, my mashpia, and I asked him, I'll tell exactly our conversation. He said to me, well, he says, his experience, you have to give like you're giving a shir for Eden. A guy comes in to hear it, fine. So you're speaking in a way that he also could hear it. But that's not what you're planning for. You're planning. So I said to him, what happens if you know that more goyim are coming to the shir, and maybe just a Jew or two may come in? He says, I have no experience in that. I can't answer. I never did it. He told me this before. I said, anyone you'd suggest? Rav Gaines mentioned did that. I said, there's no one in the Babbers that did that. I mean, maybe once in a while someone gave a talk for a goyim, but it's not common. I remember I called Shalom Lipsker and I called Manas Friedman, I called everybody. And nobody could answer. I said, what would the Rebbe say to do? Not just what you do if you happen to be talking to a group of non-Jewish diplomats. Obviously you could find other ways to talk to them. We're talking about a book where you have to set down ideas one after the other. I'm not talking about conversation. Conversation, you talk about God, etc. And I really, as I struggled with this, I started wondering, and I couldn't ask the Rebbe, at least not in any direct way. So I really had a dilemma. And I remember I called my agent and I said, if I don't resolve this, I don't know if I could write a, and not really, if it's on integrity, I could write a book, Simon Jacobson, but I can't call it the wisdom of the Rebbe when I don't even know the whole Yesod, the whole foundation. And it was really troubling me. And I was struggling. I said, where did the Rebbe address this? Maybe somewhere. And you won't believe what I discovered. I said to myself, is there anywhere the Rebbe spoke to Goy? So then I realized, I think I told this to you once. No, all the televised Farbrengens. So I said, you know what, let me go to those televised, because there the Rebbe knew he was speaking. I mean, he was speaking to Farbrengen in Yiddish, to Eden, but the Rebbe knew, it was quite conscious of speaking to the, and you won't believe what I discovered. 2 sichos, at least. I'll tell you, Ayin Beis Tammuz Mem Gimel, and Chofav Mem Dalet. Those are 2 sichos that I found, that the Rebbe Mamish answers my question, and I knew those Farbrengens, but I never had that question. If you don't have the question, you don't know it's an answer. The Rebbe asked, in Ayin Beis Tammuz Mem Gimel, he says like this. He starts the first sicha, I think it's Mem Gimel, maybe Mem Beis. His first sicha speaks about he speaks about the famous story when the Frierdiker Rebbe was arrested many times, When the first time he was a child. They put him in a prison and there was an animal, there was a goat, a sheep, in the other corner. He was very scared. So the Rebbe spoke that the first is Nefesh Elokis, the Rebbe is the Nefesh Elokis, the animal, the sheep is Nefesh Abamis, and you're scared, and then you realize you can conquer it. That was the hero from that. The second sicha starts like this, mamish like this. The Rebbe says, we just spoke a whole thing about Nefesh Elokis, Nefesh Abamis, and we're speaking using machshirim, using technology that reaches the whole world. How is that shaykh to non-Jews? Tanya says, Nefesh Hashem is b'Yisrael. So the whole thing, there's no lesson for it, because it's a Nefesh Elokis, Nefesh Abamis thing. The Rebbe asked the question, and then he answers. He says something very radical. He says that even Nefesh Elokis, Nefesh Abamis, but in a certain way, is also by Goyim. But Fedish says it. And he says, because it says in Posuk Kehelis, Ruach ha'adam el l'mayla, we learned it here, Ruach ha'behemi yeredus l'mata. That means, and a Goy also has, in this Shavim Mitzvah Neich, he has Bechira. That means he has to have something that's Elokus, and something that is the opposite. There's a battle. And he's responsible. And he goes the whole arichas to the. Bechira is used by a goy. Is not bechira? Right. That's what you say, and the Rebbe says something else. I'll show you. His letters look in Chelik Gimel in the Hesafis to Pashlach. Trust me, this is a subject that I struggle with. I have it down pat.
Doesn't the Yid only have Who
steht das?
Well, there are levels of Kirchhoffs also.
There are levels. So look, I just told you one of McCain is to look up.
Okay.
Look up. Anyway,
That was one
the Nazis have Bechira, in your opinion? They didn't do them, why they're guilty?
The Rebbe spoke many times of Verbrenger on Rosh Hashanah. That's why Yom Kippur warned.
And then he spoke Verbrenger, in this Verbrenger he spoke Goitya.
When it comes to
It's levels, it's level. First of all, it says like this. It says, Akum, a guy that learns Torah is Chayiv Nisa. So I just mitzvahs, Sheva mitzvahs dilhu. So it says, in his Sheva mitzvahs, he has a mitzvah. Now Sheva mitzvahs happen to be Aseres Adibris, except Shabbos and Kibbutz Av. People think Sheva mitzvahs is like 7 little sugar candies they throw to Goyim. It happens to be, you say this, Amunah and Hashem, etc., etc. So, Bechira in his mitzvahs he has, that's for sure. The question is how. The Rebbe has explanations for it. There are, I mean, it's not for here. Then I found the second sikh, which even wilder. That's why I'm answering it with what you asked me. Chafov, the Rebbe speaking about Rab Levi, he's speaking about Neshama's Nitzchis. And every year the Neshama's Yotzeit goes higher. You know, the second sikh, the same thing. And I saw when I saw that, twice the same. Rebbe says, why is that relevant speaking to the whole world and he's speaking of this? And then he says that because all these inyanim are also shaykh to none, because they also have a neshama. Tzelem Elikim. Different level. But it goes into the whole thing about everybody has a nefesh, and everybody has a this, and there's also aliyas. According to both Perushim, Gan Eden and Chis HaMesim. The whole thing. And then he said, this answered my question 100%. Then the Rebbe added this, which was exactly what I was thinking. The Rebbe said, and all the Inyanim Chassidus that talk even about mitzvahs that are shaykh only to Jews, the Hasbaras and Ruchnis are shaykh also to U'Maseil. And he said, Tefillin, Meich Shibud HaLev HaMeich. The concept could be explained to a guy, even if he doesn't put on tefillin. So maybe not the same level of intensity. Anyway, I did not really hear the place.
This is Emunah and Achdas Hashem. So finished.
Yeah, and the Rebbe brings,
sure.
and the Rebbe brings the Razah would write Biyurim in Chassidus and Yesh Ma'ayin to ministers in the government. Chelik Gimel, Chelik Yud Gimel, Shlach Chelik Yud Gimel. They suffer, and there's more places. You send me an email, I'll send you a whole bunch of marmakanis. Yeah. And I'll add one more thing. I mean, this is not mamish not to get. The point is that all this is absolutely relevant. But let me just say, any of you learned the Sikha Chelik Tezvav about Akum Sheshavas Chayiv Misa? Yeah. Chelik Tezvav, Neyach. The Rebbe says briefly like this. It says a guy that does keep Shabbos is Chayiv Misa, right? And the Rebbe asked the question, why? Shabbos is the Cha'in of Emunah B'Hashem. To remind us that God created the world. So once a week. So what's a... And the din is that a guy not only... He doesn't have to. If he wants to, he also not. And there's a whole shiloh with if he keeps Shabbos on Sunday. Is that also a chal? Meaning like Mama Shabbos. So the Rebbe says, why? Shabbos is the thing that anyone should be capable of doing. And the Rebbe answers, because the tachlis of a goy is l'shavish yitzara, to change the world. And he brings chassidus mamala kalalman, to be mamshech mamala kalalman in the world. So one day not to work is going against his aved shlichus. Eden also brings in seviv kalalman. So 6 days a week they work because they also have that tafkid. But they bring in also a level of elikus hechad of velt, that's Shabbos. You know what that means? If you really think about it, yeah, goyim from the times when they were murdering Jews and this were not mamala kalaman, obviously. They were klippa, shalosh klippos atmeis. But when goyim behave like chsidu meselim, they're elikus b'slapshus and velt. I mean, that's their level. That's also elikus. Halavai, we should all hold by mamala kalaman in that sense. However, it didn't bring in a level of elikus hechaf velt. That's really what it comes down to. So the Osid Lovi, when it says Mola Oretz Deis Hashem, the whole world, Lo Yesu Kol Elam, it says Klod, it's also Goyim. And Goyim. So that means that they're going to know Elikus, and they'll be learning Elikus. Hello, what? So Elamai, that doesn't mean that Eden are not one of a Charta and all the milas of Eden. It's just everything elevates, so to speak. If they're there, we're, like that. And it's not about superiority also. We're not talking about...
So what is that got to do with
Ladas Hashem ben Zeh Mechuyev?
Yid brings in the soil?
Yeah, Klod, that's what it says there. Yeah. That's what Shabbos, that's why Shabbos you don't work. Because you bring a likus, not in slapshus and velt, higher than velt. It's a beautiful thing.
And when Shabbos comes to a Pnimis, you don't have to do that.
Anyway, by the way...
They should believe in the Eibush, not, and they shouldn't have believe in Avodah Zarah.
Why not? All the levels are not.
This is all explaining. Yeah, it's all explaining.
No, what's that? We went off on a tangent, but since you asked the question, I felt I should say it. And look, this does not in any way negate all the dinim and all the things we talk about Eden and Goyim. It's not negate anything. If you think about it, it's like basically, look, if we really believe that Jews through Torah mitzvahs over the years refined the world, what does the world mean? It only means Daim Sameach and Chai, not Medaber, not Goyim. We refined the world, and Goyim are beferish more kalim for Elikus today than they were 1,000 years ago. There's no question about that.
Even mitzvahs.
The Rebbe says it beferish. This is not my. When I start. No, but there's always. Even now, someone can get up and murder people. Unfortunately, Jews also murder. What do you do about that? So I mean. The Rebbe says clearly that the world generally gets more and more refined, except there are dips in this. But overall, it's up.
According to that theory, then how did 60 years ago the world murdered 66 million Jews?
The Rebbe asks this question and answers. The whole Chavli Mashiach is about that.
No, there's a letter to the chaplain where the Rebbe says that if they would have practiced the Indian for Sheva mitzvahs, it wouldn't have happened. The Rebbe says clearly.
No, but he's asking about the Rebbe. First of all, the Rebbe asked this question too, and he answered Chavli Mashiach, bottom line, that there's an union of before the light there's a lot of darkness, and there's moments of darkness. But generally speaking, you have to look at the whole picture.
The world is more receptive to
there's no question. The general anyway, it's much more. It's a whole sugi. It's not for this moment. Let's put it this way: if you just want to believe in Pshut Shal Mikra, the Rebbe said the world is ready for the Gula. Tell me what that means. If all goyim are shalosh klippos atameis, they'll all have to die and be murdered. How's the world ready? You have to say that they're kalim for Chesidim Meselam. If they're not mamish Chesidim Meselam, they're almost that. You have to say that, or else the Rebbe's words are not practical.
By the way, even mitzvahs ma'asis, even mitzvahs ma'asis, which sounds so radical. Rabbi Steif has his sefer on Sheva mitzvahs, and he says that even mitzvahs ma'asis, most mitzvahs, they can be mekayim just l'kabel schar. They're not mechuyev, but they're mekabel schar.
Yesh lahayder b'chol anyway. It's not 2 minutes. I wish it was the sugi here. Okay, if every Jew Havdil kept Sheva mitzvahs b'neiach, we'd have the Gula here. Let's put it this way.
If every Jew.
Yeah. Look what they are, and tell me. It's a Gula-dika world. Keep the Sheva mitzvahs, it's the Gula. Now, Elikus higher than Welt, it may be not. Not to steal, not to murder, doesn't bring El Seva Kalam. It creates civilization. But that's what it comes down to, by the way. The mitzvahs of Eden is L'mayla Me'elim. You bring in Elikus L'mayla Me'elim, and go and bring Elikus into the Welt. That's all their mitzvahs. And that's why civilization is absolute mitzvah for Goyim, to have a civilized world. Civilized is a pretty decent thing.
So still,
We're the Torah. They're the Tikkun.
A goy can't do anything for his own sake good. That's the big thing that they've been getting us on. Especially I see it lately, they're speaking about it. How do you explain that?
Let's.
I know it's all
Yeah, I'll tell you. I'll tell you a few things that. First of all, Rabbi Hillel says in the name of the Alter Rebbe that the end of Perek Aleph of Tanya is not Chesidim Meselam. You aware of that? Okay, let's get that straight. And the Rebbe brings it also. So the end of Perek Aleph is not Chesidim Meselam. Chesidim Meselam is Klippos Nega, not Shalosh Klippos Atameis. So it says that.
They're just the bad guys, the bad goy.
I guess it means in general, Okay. Hey, we got to learn something right inside. So bottom line, okay. So in Meichen of Yonika of Ibur, Makom Mokum Yesh B'Zeh Eze Hergish Ba'inyan. We can write your name in this one, and that's.
No name in it.
Okay.
So on the third level, there is a level of Meichen, to some extent, and a level of Midas, more than just a Heskem Chazak, in level 2, and that's the Meichen of Yonika, of Ibur. I keep confusing, of Ibur. Okay, next Perek, right?
Yep.
All this was
introduction.
Reish Nun Vav. V'hine b'chinas Yonika hu sheyesh is galus hamidas haboyim ha'idei hasogav is bonus. Because we're going to have to now figure out within the level of Unika, not just how Unika is different than Ibur, but how Unika is different than Ibur, how Unika is higher even than Meichin Shebe Ibur. Okay, but it's very important to first line definition. So by Ibur, he types like this: Ibur hu tachlis hakatnas v'tachlis hahelam shelo yesh b'zeh adayin gili hameichin. And then he explains that there's a little meichin k'tzas. That's Ibur. Now he says, in comparison, Unika is yesh's galus hamidus. Haboyim ayidei hasogov is bonus k'mishus boyin heited b'gedulos Hashem. Let me just summarize. He's going to say that in Ibur, there's no gili at all. And everything we discuss is a gili k'tzas at the end of the day. Remember, it's a child, 6 years old, 5 years old, 10 years old, but it's that level. L'fiyarech and Aveda. In this Pedic, in Unika, he's going to explain that now we're talking about Chagas, Hagdolos HaMechen, remember Unika, the second level, but it's Elikus as it's Mislabish and Elamus. Oh, that's the connection. Mislabish be'elamus. And the next Pedic in Mechen, he's going to explain it's Elikus L'mayla me'elamus. So Unika, Ibur is Nehi, is basically basic functionality. You're functioning and you're following with Eibush Tavil on a functional level with a little feeling, a little consciousness, yeah. In Unika, you're having a full experience, but it's Elikus on our terms. And Mechen is Elikus higher than our terms, which of course gets back to the interface. It's perfect. It's beautiful. You start off on your terms with a little Elikus. You get to a place where Elikus is, but it's still on your terms. Bislapshus and Kalim. And then comes Elikus Hechafavelt. And all this Mechen is the captain that's directing us to that place. So you mamish can get your Mechen leads you to a place of
Elikus on Elikus's terms, not on
Elikus on Elikus's terms.
It's not really an interface. It's really Elikus.
No, but it came after these two, so it is an interface. Remember, when it's in your kelim and you get it, even if it's Elikus Hechafavelt, remember you can't begin with it. It's like what says by Matan Torah. You can't count the day 50, but you can't get 50 without the 49. It's like the Sus Leil that comes after the Sus Leil, that the Sus Leil after.
In one word, what does Meichin have that it can do that?
That's what he explained much earlier.
Right.
Meichin has it has the hybrid of godliness, and it's where God meets felt. It's where the fingers touch.
Yeah, but Meichin has something that can do that. What is
bittul. It has bittul. It's a mitzias that has bittul.
Mitzias that has bittul.
Yeah. No, you got it. And not only that, Meichin by nature is a human faculty, but its nature requires bittul. Because a person who thinks and is really concentrating on the thought, not on himself.
And that's an oxymoron.
Means he has to. Right. It's an oxymoron because Meichin, by definition, means you can't be thinking about yourself. If I'm thinking I'm hungry, or I'm thinking how am I going to use this thing for my tayelis, you're not going to get the idea. Idea by nature is an abstraction from your yeshus.
Nature that we have that it is, and it's not.
You got it exactly right, and that's why it's like Eir. Ultimately, becomes like Eir because Eir has a mitzias, but it's bottle. Yeah, it's the care in Perek Lamed Hey in Tanya, where he says in the Haggadah there from the Magid that Meichin Chochm is Keyachma because it has this galus of Eir and Sof that Hu Levade ve'Ein Zelose. Look in
I have to tell you the word, the one you said now. I heard the word is just phenomenal. You have to hear it.
What is the word?
Over there in Perek Lamed Hey, what you just mentioned now.
Yeah.
The Alter Rebbe writes,
right.
Yeah, a beautiful word.
No.
He says, like I heard from my Rebbe, the
Magid.
this pshat, right? So someone said, the whole Tanya he heard from his Rebbe. What's up here? I heard from my Rebbe.
No good.
Good question, no?
Yeah.
Punkt here, I heard this from my Rebbe. He says, when he says I heard from my Rebbe, he's not telling you information, I heard this from my Rebbe, I heard everything from my Rebbe. He's telling you, if you want to understand this, it's only if you have a Rebbe and you hear it from your Rebbe.
Very good.
It's not.
Das Guf is bittul. Yeah. Ich verstehe.
It's the only way.
Right. The Rebbe would say this often when he would speak about Simske Pshute. The Rebbe is.
You don't really understand it.
That's the whole idea. If you have a Rebbe, then the only way you can understand it is by having a Rebbe.
By the way,
it has nothing to do with understanding. It has to do with having a Rebbe.
Now, two things.
That's what the Alter Rebbe is letting you know.
When you own a concept and you don't quite.
The Rebbe says it many times in the later years. The Rebbe would speak about how the truth is the Welt could have been not Tisavas B'chol Rega. They says in Shaykhut V'Amuna that and it could have been Simson Kipshute. And I remember when we asked the Rebbe, but it's all the hichachas the Alter Rebbe brings that Tisavas the whole Shaykhut was giboit down all kinds of. So the Rebbe said after he was mekabel from the Rabbeim as a That's when he was malbish in the seichel. In other words, and I remember because I used to talk to Yale about this for hours, because Chabad, you always thought like Chabad, seichel, so we understand elikus. That means on our terms, we're getting elikus. The truth is the other way around. Elikus, it's a changatan in seichel. It's not seichel. We think it's seichel. It makes sense to us, but it's really elikus. Just like elikus can zachantan in could be malbish in something that is not talpi seichel, could be malbish also in seichel. It's not limited. So in other words, seichel is really elikus as it malbish in our terms and bittul, and we have to work our way backwards, and we can misunderstand. What always bothered me was in the Maimorim it says when you learn chachmas chutzenius, you become a bigger yesh. You learn chachmas elikus, you become more bottom. You know, you don't see it that way necessarily. But that's the vod, because the bottom line is, when you learn science, you learn all these things, it doesn't tell you that you don't exist. It's about understanding that you do exist, and you understand how you exist, which makes you really more a yesh, because now you also understand it. Whereas when you're learning things that are beyond you, a definition is telling you don't exist, that you're not tefus smoking. You know, so it's not that some punkt you happen to learn math, you become a yesh. It's because it's the seichel is a seichel of you. You're understanding yourself. And real chassidus teaches you not to understand not you, but to understand.
Like at a higher level, actually. Being Cheshvan is a higher level.
By the way, the nehi is the avedim basilagani of the anshe chayil, that the melech is mizvazber the eitzrus, is for nehi, is for the foot soldiers. Says that clearly, because they are do it with Kabbalah sale, they don't without any giluyim. That what we're given. The Rebbe said also about Gilui of Chassidus. Once I remember the Rebbe said, how could it be that the Alter Rebbe's Chassidim, Mittler Rebbe, Tzemach Tzedek, didn't have the Gilui of Chassidus, that the Rebbe Rashab and the Tzemach Tzedek Rebbe, and obviously the Rebbe himself. And the Rebbe said, because we have the Anshe Chayil, we are the foot soldiers, and you get much more. You get the eitzes. It's interesting, because we always used to wonder, all these things, the Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe get it, the way, you know, I'm sure they got things that we don't get, but a lot of things are said. They talk about atzmos and eir. A lot of these things were not even, you know, they don't. So I remember. We've always makabel. They got it like the Tanoim got the Mishnah without the Gemara. They got it in, you know, they sensed it. Not after they had the aces for it. They knew the truth of it. Would Moshe Rabbeinu gain anything from learning Ayin Beis? Let's put it that way. I'm sure he would. Okay, v'hine b'chinin sinika hiu sheyesh is galus amidus. So now we're going to talk about how the hasog of his bonus commission is born hativ begedulas Hashem bebrias prisavas elemus. So here we have his galus hamidus is going to have the real revelation of feelings that come through through understanding and contemplating and thinking well into the greatness of Hashem and how He created and how He maintains the elemus, the worlds. The niksiv, sorry. God Lashem Muhulmeid Be'ir Elokeinu. So the Medrash says, Emesu, God Lashem Muhulmeid, God is great and very exalted, Muhulal, Be'ir Elokeinu, in the city of Elokeinu, in the city of God. What does it mean? It's a strange pasuk. God is great in the city of God. Okay, so of course it's Hashem and Elokeinu. So what does it mean? Emesu Gadol, when is He great? Keshuhu Be'ir Elokeinu. When is He great? Is Hashem is when He is in the city of Elokeinu. Shebezen nikar gedulas Hashem ubezen yichem lahasik gedulasei. In other words, the Rabbi Rashab is establishing first of all that we have able to understand English. Because you talk about interface, the immediate question is, who says les machshavat tfisa beikla? We can't grasp it. But the fact that we have psukim like das alekei avicha. You have to know God. They'll say that. And so on is a right that we could. So why?
At what level? I understand a certain level of godliness, not higher than that.
Maybe we could. How do you know?
It says clearly this.
No, so then Chassidus says, and then Tfisa berusa deliba. Then Chassidus says, through rusa deliba you can go back also in Chabad.
If you have rusa deliba first.
Remember, the interface is complete. Depends how. It depends what means understanding.
Talking about understanding.
The level of manifestation of godliness can be grasped, not higher than that. And Libra cannot.
So I'm saying to you, for the record, it says in other places otherwise. The Rebbe brings that it says the Mushal Ilya Daitev He Yisuf. If I knew him, I'd be him. And that right, and then it says it's been a chusa that you could come to that place.
The nun.
With the Gedulas Hashem be'etzem einon yichel lahasig, because Gedulas Hashem be'etzem, in essence of Gedulas Hashem, we cannot comprehend. Rak mepulos of Yisbarach. You could only understand it through his actions, through his pu'ulas. V'zeu emasai anu masigim Gedulasei, and that's the meaning. When do we understand his greatness? Kashu be'ir elikenu, elam hadibur elyon. When do we understand his godless? When he's in Ir Elikenu, in the city of God, which means as he comes down into a city, into the Elam Hadibur. Close the door. The Elam Hadibur Elyon, in the world of the supernal Dibur. The Ir hu miribui batim, because he explains now what's a Ir. Ir is a city, but Ir is also in Sefer Yetzirah. He speaks about an Ir. It goes like this: one letter is a letter, two letters create a Ir hu miribui batim. An Ir is made up of many houses. Obayis nasa miribi avonim, and a house is made up of many stones. The avonim hen asius. Stones are what? Stones represent letters. Shtei avonim beina shtei batim. That's in Sefer Yetzirah. Two stones build two houses. So it goes like this: a stone is one letter. If you put two stones together, you can create a word, ben, or something like that.
3 is 6.
Right, exactly. And then those houses, those words, create many words, create a sentence or a paragraph, and that's a city. So a city is basically letters that become words that become right. So it's stones that become houses that become a city. That's Ir Elikenu. Ir Elikenu klolos elam hadibur. So what does Ir Elikenu represent? Klolos elam hadibur means the whole world of dibur, all words. Meaning it's a big city, so it's all possible words. Obviously, Dibur, we're talking about the Dibur Ha'elyon that creates existence. But we're talking about creating existence. Remember, we're talking Yenika here. We're not talking about Elikus Hechafavelt, we're talking about Elikus and Ir Elikenu. Because Elikus Hechafavelt, we can't understand in this Perek at least. That's not Meichen. This is Yenika. But you could appreciate how God Hashem will made, but Ir Elikenu. That's the key here. How it manifests in Welt. So, here can close elam adibur. Beribi aces b'tzirufim sheim marka kol nevraim shenisavu beribi adein kates v'shir. So, why is it called first everything? So, Ir Elikenu, when we say the city of God, we're talking about all of existence, not a small city. It's everything. Everything that can be made out of letters and words, obviously, is the source of all creation. Like he says in Shari Yichud V'Amunah, that's just a matter of the permutations, the tzirufim and the gematrias and so on. So, Asarim Amoris Nivra Elam. Hashem said, Yehi Eir, Yehi Rakia. All those words created. Like he goes on in Tanya, the 10 Mamoras break into many words. And that we have everything in existence. Even a thing like a table doesn't say Yehi Shulchan, but a table comes from some type of permutation, or some type of permutation is a tziruf. Permutation means tzirufim. You say it's tziruf. Tziruf is a... Huh?
I don't think so.
What's a tziruf?
Combination?
Yeah, okay, so read the different configurations of the words. So for example, what's the point? What it says in Kabbalah Chassidus is that you take the Ayin Beis, you take, let's say, in different order, that's what everything is created is from different letters. That's what he's saying. Combinations, he says, gematrias, etc., etc. The different type of Aleph Beis orders. So basically, Ir Elikenu goes on what? Goes on all creation, because created by the letters, which turn into words, which turn into houses and a city. One big city. Okay? Like it says in Tehillim, 2 different psukim. How many? How great the multitude. How many are his ma'asim? Magadlu, how great are the ma'asim? As you say, Rabu refers to quantity. How many there are? But the bechlolas hein datscham. In general, they're dem tzamei chaim medaber. Or bepratius yesh b'zaribi aden shir. So Rabu Masacha goes on the diversity of quantity. In general, it's 4 categories: mineral, vegetable, animal, and man. And spoken, yeah. And the proteus, each one, how many minerals are there? Multitudes. How many vegetables? The vegetable world. How many animals? So on. So bottom line, so all this comes from Elam HaDibur. This is the Ir Elikenu. V'kol zeh ba'elam ha'tachten. Everything.
Even specific.
Yeah, every detail.
Even a specific sunflower compared to another sunflower.
Absolutely, yeah. And each one is another.
Not only the fall, but,
And every one is another combination. Oh, stop a second.
So you're saying it wasn't.
I already slipped before. Huh?
It's ready.
That's good. The kol zeh be'elam hatachten. This is talking about the multitudes of all these things in this lower world. V'harei kol dover shalamat. He's not finished yet. Everything below, yesh le'sherish amokel l'mayla, has a source above. U'kamoi kad kara de tarnagula. Like it says, that the call of the tarnagul, when you hear the voice of the tarnagul, of the rooster, the call of the rooster, mevorach hanes l'sech v'bina, you make the bracha in the morning. Why? Because who cares about a cry of a rooster? Why is that so? Because b'sharshe in the root, it's malach machol. Malach Gavriel, I'm sorry. B'sharshe tarnagul is malach Gavriel, so it's malach Gavriel calling. And b'sheidah sharshe in the root of the root, it's hey gvur is the imah.
Makes sense? He's smiling.
Now, most people say, tarnagul, hey gvur is the imah. This looks like the baki from the
Why hey
Bina.
gvur is the him and not gvura?
No, because the tarnagul is gvura. That's the point, the gvura. Right. No, Gavriel is gvura, Mechol is chesed. So basically, what's happening when the cry of the rooster, it's reflecting that moment something happens in Ruchnis. That Gavriel and the Hegvurus Salamayla are being awakened. So therefore we say, Hanes l'sech v'bina.
The meaning of boundaries. And the Tarnagel calls in the morning when it's...
Erev Cheshach, right.
Right, so that's the boundaries between...
Yeah, but how is it, but what is it b'sheidish? That
Why
Hakara.
Ema? Why Dafke Ema?
Ima, because Bina creates Gvura, as he's saying. Gvura creates this boundary.
That's when he screams and he cries.
We say
Crow
more
is
in
fire.
front of chesed, so it needs the boundaries to be added to it.
Which crow is the...
So Hanes l'sech v'bina, because Bina is the seichel of the distinguishing between Eir and Cheshach. Yeah. The b'chol zeh yesh ribui aden shir mamish. So he's saying, in other words, what he's saying here is not just a ribui in this world, we're talking about the ribui of all the worlds. Because remember, he's talking here about Elokus and Welt. So he's not just talking understanding physical worlds, also understanding all the root and the shadish of everything that exists. And now he goes to Magadlu. That's ribui. Ma rabba masach. Magadlu. Now he's going to talk about quality. Hengdele hanevraim. Actually, not quality. He's not saying quality. Not the number of it is, but gdele hanevraim. How their size, volume. Yeah, size. Gdele hanevraim hein bekamus. High bekamus, that they're pasha physically big, like it says. Mina eretz l'rakia is chamesh me'eh shana. The Gemara says that from eretz to Rakia is a journey of 500 years, or whatever the distance of. So we're talking about pasha a majorly large universe. So in addition to the number that there's so many, like there's so many different type of species, now we also have a physically large universe.
Can you explain
And
that?
what's a ragli hachai shukeh. Chassidus says 500 is referring to spheres. It's a madrege. It's not it's actually not necessarily physical travel, because it's and also what's the kia? 500 years. You can go 500 years. You reach Pluto. I don't know how long does it take to get to there. 500. It doesn't take to the moon.
Travel.
Also
What does it mean?
Walking 500 years?
Right, exactly.
Driving or with a rocket 500 years, I mean, it's...
But Pashtus, you always type.
You're actually trying to figure it out.
No, I'm trying to figure out what it means when it says 500 years.
But even Begashmis, you could say that it's talking. The Kia is, I guess, maybe out of the solar system, because even the fastest spaceships. How long is the spaceship? When they send it from Earth, the Earth to Uranus, it does say 500 years, yeah. How long is when the spaceships that left here and reaching now to Uranus and Neptune, well, how long was it? It's years for sure. It's not 500, however. It's 20 years, it's 30 years. So you could technically say that Rakia means, Rakia Rishon, means outside the solar system. So maybe technically, with the fastest things that we'll ever be able to build, they'll take that. You could also say, like in some places, it says it's just a sheer, just for the Shire Se'ezin, just for us to. But for Pichsidis, it says klar. Tov Kuf is what's Tov Kuf? He says there. It's a spheris. It's a madrega. The Kia is like Zah. The Gabba Malchus is you have to go through 5 levels. I think it's the 5 levels times 100. It says it. It says it in Eirat. I've seen. So bottom line is that we're talking about a large universe, And Ragli Achayis, Sheke Achayis, like it says, Ragli Achayis connected Kulam. Ragli Achayis, we're talking now Ruchnis, Ragli Achayis, which is the Ragli of the Chayis HaKadosh, the Malachim. And Sheke Achayis is their, they say, translate Shuk, thighs, yeah. Okay, that's Bekamus. So we're talking about Pasha, a physically large word. V'hein be'echus, and also in quality. Shegdelim b'malosan. They're not just large; they have their power, and their like the sun. It's not just a large entity; it's also an awesome force. So Mikol Zeh moving Gedulas Hashem Habeiru Mahavakel. This is Ir Elokeinu. So Ir Elokeinu nicht as a kleiner Shtetl, not klein Shtetl dicke Politik. It's not just Crown Heights. Ir Elokeinu is referring to the whole structure of existence, basically, which is Ma Rabu Masecha, a multitude of species, Magadlu, that's great both in size and in echus and in quality.
You talk about every species.
Yeah.
Every rock in Uranus, I mean everything.
I remember reading from Richard Feynman, the great physicist, Jew, brilliant. You ever read him? He's good. He, by the way, took the most abstract ideas and gave simple examples. That was his brilliance. He took a Pashat example and explained the deepest things with it, the physics. So he said once something which I think I just found the answer to. His question was, he always believed in God until he started realizing how large the universe is. He said, if God created the universe, why did he create things we will never ever be able to come close to? There's no need for it. Things that are beyond, I'm talking about the solar system, beyond solar system. He can understand that within human reach, humans will never go there. And that's what caused them to doubt God's existence, because there's so much waste. He says there's too much waste. There's too much.
It's not a logical conclusion.
I'm telling you what he came to. Too much wasted creation. But you could say that Gufa is an expression of the godless, because he wanted Abish to want in Elam Hazeh a dogma of that which is beyond us.
Who says that if it's wasted to you, it's actually wasted?
If it serves no purpose, then it's a waste.
No.
How do you know what purpose is?
No.
Because in his mind, he decided that it's wasteful.
It's not for
No,
you.
No, he meant it. But it's not for Adam. But it's not for...
The DNA codes.
No, you could say the same thing is. I understand what you're saying.
Same
But he means the vastness. He doesn't mean, obviously, because if God created it, humans will never benefit from it in any direct way. And not benefit. You could say just like the wood, that's like the trees in the forest. Without that, we wouldn't be alive. Even though we don't understand it. They give off their carbon monoxide, etc., etc. They absorb the oceans, the great oceans. They're far beyond us, but they are necessary for life. So you could say the same thing with the solar system. But I think his point was more the sheer magnitude. Why would he put it there?
What is he, a speck of dust? What is it?
Anyway, fine. So I gave a different suggestion here. That's all. Fine. You might Shmuel Schneider. You remind me they're learning L'Kutei Torah. They learn L'Kutei Torah, and it says that 2/3 of the world is covered in water, and 1/3 is earth, is land. So one looks to the other. He says, everywhere he looks, he sees land. Where's the water? He says, the Alter Rebbe says that. You have to just be makabel.
So he makes as much sense as Shmuel Schneider.
That's what I'm saying. Anyway, when the Scots, remember when Saddam Hussein shot the Scots to Israel. So the Rebbe said it won't affect anybody. One person was killed. So it was Verbringen. Each Springer was there, Lebelgron was there. This is perfect. So someone said, but somebody was killed. So Lebelgron says, wasn't directly. He had a heart attack, blah, blah. The Rebbe said, And each Springer says, Vemen Gleibst, the radio to the Rebbe? Who do you believe, the radio or the Rebbe? In other words, Vezek the Rebbe?
I was a bit glad he went sukkahs.
And I think he has a point. You don't know everything you hear on the radio.
You should know that I went sukkahs. I happened to be walking by a sukkah. I used to park by. I walked in, I saw him sitting alone in the sukkah in the afternoon. I'm sitting to him 5 minutes. All of a sudden, escapes on pluch. It's pouring rain. Remember the burst rain? His wife says to him, "Ich komm rein, es kommt der Regen." Was für Regen? Es regnet nicht. It's pouring down on us. Es regnet nicht.
Okay. Mikol Zeh moving Gedulas Hashem Habeiru Mahavakel. K'di Isa b'Medrash Rabbah. Al Pasuk Hashemayim Mesaprim Veit Kael. The Pasuk says the heavens themselves tell the story of God's glory. The Ma'avnei Tahum is Geishes Bohun. How do they tell it? Because how do they tell the stories? Because when you understand the properties of Shamayim. What's the Avnei Mizgeshes Ben?
Little tight Mizgeshes Ben.
No.
Where's Kima when we need him?
Mizgeshes is not plays. Mizgeshes is what he what? Huh? Yeah.
If you analyze a rock, what's the shot?
You could crawl on, you could feel.
Yeah. The Shemayim is made up of properties that are, but it says always about it. I'm not exact types of medrash, but the Shemayim. How does Shemayim tell the story? So with Pashas, we always think, Shemayim, the nice sky, stars, but it's because this is actually the properties of the Eibush, like Eibush's building blocks. Yeah. That's what it means. Right. So you look, in other words, studying, observing, and what's the word for it? And analyzing, understanding Elam Hazah, you're understanding God's fingers. It's like his paintbrush. That's what it means there. I think that's what it means actually. Avnei Mizgeshes is the tools. Avnei is not stones. I think it means like his instruments, with which he.
It's like a child who's beginning to walk and he's feeling his way.
That's what it's the teichen. Exact medrash would be good to see. I'll look it up. But also he says, look, Perek Tzadik Tes. What does he say in Perek Tzadik Tes? Let me see something. Medrash Tanchuma Avnei Mizgeshes behem. A mashal giber shenichnas lemedina. That's it. It's a mashal. There's a giber that went into the country. They didn't know what his power is. When you look at the things that he is able to.
I think it means the stone.
No, there it means the stone, but the nimshal. Yeah. There it means the stones that he's able to lift. No, you can't see the kayach of a person until he does something. You see suddenly he's able to lift these things, so you know. Kach ma shamayim alein mazak kayach shel kon upirish mizgeshes hu kedisa b'mishna Perek Beis dechala emesei bezman shasfina geisheshes. Pirish ha'aruch it mamash itayt shekarkoyis hasfina negez bekarkoyis hayam. Geisheshes means to touch.
Barely touch.
Two things that when the ship, in other words, it manifests. It manifests. Pasha teaches it here. Perek Tzadik Tes. Rabbi Rashab gave us the answer.
Yeah, you remember that?
Negas. It means negas.
Said that when he plays a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So bottom line is that Shemaim Misapim. So again, we're talking about how the world reveals Elokus. V'kol zeh nishav rak b'maimer echad. And now here's going to be the Pella here. So we have such a large universe that is with all the Kamus and Be'echus and Rabu and Gadlu and all that, and all the Asius. All this was nishav from one maimer, from one utterance. V'ruach piv, and from one breath. U'kamesh amar baruch sha'amar v'haya elam. Look, we say baruch sha'amar. Blessed is the one that said v'haya elam, and the world became out of his amar. The ba'mira achas nivru kol ha'elamis, with one utterance. Remember, b'maimer echad yochel baris, because it says b'asara ma'maris nivru elam, 10 utterances, and maimer echad. So yes, how? So it says bereishis nam and maimer. So bottom line is when the Eibishter said, made one expression. From this came all the elamis. Baruch she'amar v'haya elam. Ve'efan esavisu b'derech ein areich. And he created it in a way that's completely distant. It's ein areich. It is infinitely apart and distant from us. Shezeh inyan yeshmayin. That's the inyan of yeshmayin. Which, by the way, one little word here, and he gives you an explanation of what's yeshmayin. Because people ask the question, the klotz kasha. Everything's yeshmayin. There's one God, and he created everything. Even it is yeshmayin in concept. Yes, it reflects the moyer. But everything is a yesh out of the ayin of Elikus. But the answer is some things are created in a ifrin that is a gili of Elikus, and some things are created that they don't feel the connection. That's what yeshmayin means. Yeshmayin doesn't mean he creates something out of nothing. Everything is out of nothing. Everything, after Atzmus, everything is out of nothing in Inyan. But he created some things in a way that are a reflection of him, so it's like an expression of the Elikus. And this world he created a Shlei Be'erech. Shlei Be'erech is the key word of Yeshmayin.
Where does Yeshmayin start? After Tzilus? It starts right after?
Chassidus, it talks about the concept of the Kodmo Heder, the Ilu Kodmo Heder. Everything really in essence is however, it's like Erein Sof Be'etzem is they say is Ki Ilu Kodmo Heder. What does it mean? But Pil, it was always there. but in concept, it's still a step outside of Atzmus. So in concept, it's Ki'ilu Kadmitz. It's as if there was something once, as if it once was not there. In other words, you can't say anything is muchach to be except Atzmus. But the point is, but not everything is created in a Remember, we talked about two types of air. There's an air that reflects Atzmus. The other is also from Atzmus, but he made it in a way that doesn't reflect himself. So it's a shalei be'erech, it's a jump. So on one hand, this multitude, this whole thing is an unbelievably large universe in every possible way. On the other hand, it was all created just from one mimer from the Eibishter. Right? And in a way that's Shlei Berach. But on the other hand, we go back again. Because remember, we're defining the interface here. And nevertheless, inside this Yesh Ma'ayin, there's the Keich Ein Seif. In other words, the fact that he put this into existence, that itself is a reflection of the infinite power of Elokus, of Atzmus. Because in order for to put into existence, to bring into existence such a reality, that has to come from Keich Ein Seif. In other words, it's not something that came from Malachim or some other Gili. This has to come from Mamish, the source itself.
What? Because Yesh Ma'ayin? Or because it's unlimited?
No, he's going to say, She'ein zeh b'cheken nevroim klal. Because nothing, no nivra, for example, Malachim can produce something. Right. But what they produce is ilavol. He's going to say here. She'ein zeh b'cheken nevroim klal. Yeah, but sometimes it says chek like a chok, yeah. What's the difference in chek with a yud and a vav? Chek is a law, the order of the laws. But I think chek is also maybe. I think it also has a similar meaning. I know sometimes with the yud, sometimes with the vav. I've seen both. Klal, kama ilav ilush nemtzu gamkin b'chek nevram. Ilav alul.
But it's already existing stuff. It's just
right. But that's in the power. That's in the power of nevram. Mashen can be yesh ma'ayin ein ze b'chek nimtzoyim klal. Suddenly says nimtzoyim before he said nevroim, because it's not just nevroim; it's also b'chal mitzias. Yeah. B'chal doesn't exist, not just nivra. So the bottom line is yesh ma'ayin is not even the chek nimtzoyim klal ki im b'keich ein seif. This is the Tanya. I get a sakedah simachov. Shehu levade b'keich v'yecholte. Only he has the power and the ability to create. Yesh ma'ayin. What is he saying? Against the Kaddish. Against the Kaddish, he says the following. It says like this. This is Mededik there. Of course, the big Kaddish from against the Kaddish. He says that. Why is only the Keich Atzmus to create Yesh ma'ayin? So Kishva Pashtus we learn because all of us we can create a house from stones. You can take stones from earlier stones, but you can't create the first stone. Yeah, right. Shape. I mean, that's what I mean. Build. Yeah, that's what pashtus. And only something that is neither yesh or ayin can mamish take something and like stone from where? Doesn't have any ingredients that it could. That's what pashtus what you think. But there he adds in Tanya. He says the only reason I have a full of ad b'keich v'cholte is because the yesh ma'ayin, because the yesh feels that it doesn't have a root, a source. The only ila the siba shekadmu lei. So the question he asks is, how could something be created that doesn't have that doesn't feel it has a source? Everything has a source. Like we all know we had a father and a mother, and that our father and mother had a father and mother. No, you have a source. How can it be that something should exist that doesn't feel it has a source? So he answers that means it has to be created by something that has no source, and that's what gave it, which is unbelievable. Why? Because you could argue the fact we don't feel we have a source is because we're deluded. Right. It's not real. But the Alter Rebbe says no, the fact that we feel that means that this has to come from something else. And that can only come from something that has no source. That's good. Here, I don't know if he's
relying. He's good?
Huh?
You say he's good?
That sounds like
Someone said even Adam Arishan didn't feel that he had a source.
No, they're not the bush to Chira, but Chassidim, but Adam Arishan had a pulpit, had a volley button, had a mail. Because the mother he didn't have. So it says in Kabbalah, it says that you're going to learn later that there's a Tabur Da'ak. The Odin Kadmon has a. Yeah. So you have to say, I don't know if he had a physical one, but there's definitely the concept. The truth is, we're created, even though we know we have parents and a source, but we don't feel that we're an extension of them. We don't feel like, It's certain things are feel, they know they have a source, and that's it. That's the difference between Eir and Yesh. The light of the sun knows it's coming from the sun, and doesn't have anything except the source.
I didn't know it's over.
Last time I spoke to
By
that.
definition, by definition.
Well, how do we know? Well, it's not about consciousness, but the fact the way he behaves.
What's the
It
heck?
seems that way. You never see it rebelling against the sun. Let's put it this way.
And it's article.
It's always doing his job.
Then it's article.
Okay.
Okay, so tzaddik is like Eir.
What's the heck? Is Al
The
Pisei?
tzaddik chose to be that way.
Not always. Maybe we're not tzaddik.
What's the heck? Is Al Pisei? That something that feels independent must be created by something that doesn't have the muck. What the heck? They could
Where
say
does he get that
memory wise. I mean, why does it have to? Why is it just because I have that feeling?
Because it
it's
goes
more-
deeper. It's not just a feeling. It's because the Yesh, by his personality, is an Eva Afsi Eid. And the Rebbe, Alter Rebbe is disturbed how that, who can create such a thing? That should be so, and it's not just feeling, not feeling, whether you're, it doesn't matter if you're conscious or not. Existence is, by nature, is an independent reality. That's the dilemma. So if not the Alter Rebbe, this is maybe
Or you could say the other.
this is, I think,
this
this is a chiddush from Alter Rebbe that does not exist anywhere before the Alter Rebbe. No one ever said this. This is like mamish chiddush. Because you could argue that is the yesh of nivra that you have to break, and that's not brechen. And Alter Rebbe's chiddush is named the yesh nivra should be margish as part of the yesh amiti. It means atzmus is not here. Except our distortion is that you think it's your own. You came to discover that comes from atzmus, and atzmus gave you a real chiddush. It's unbelievable chiddush.
But it's an amun.
It's mamish. It's an
Kemevur,
amun.
Baruch and Ayin Beis.
So it's going back to the
The
previous.
Jews Ayin Beis in Samuel Vov, he talks more about it.
There is.
There's probably places, the Rebbe talks about this more than anybody. Peter Shalom talks about this. My motive is not a lot. They say, in the Chutei Burim it says, when Alter Rebbe wrote a Geras Geras Machav, the Chassidim, a few big ones, were like Kulam Zichon Legas. When they saw those three lines, first time, now, when you see it and I see it, it doesn't look so, but that's what the Rebbe writes, that when the three Chassidim saw it, they went, like it was the mind boggling. You gotta say, I mean, it's on not only that chiddush. In some of what he says, "Ubezeh chiddush Rabbeinu Shmesei Geras Hakeres Ian of Eir." There's even a bigger chiddush that Eir brings that down. That. How do we get it?
Say here also,
Yeah. Yeah.
It brings down the concept.
That yes, yeah, because Eir on its own is beferish margish the market.
Right.
You see, Eir could only be Megala Elikus. That's a market. The Megala, the Atzmus that he's Mitzusim Atzmusei, only a Yesh can be Megala.
And nevertheless, you find that Eir does it.
Eir brings it. Eir like Chachma, it transmits it.
It's a conduit.
So Eir, there's a that's the it's a
Because me'ein amor, right?
and also Eir becomes it says the Kadum Kekadmusei. It because it's so bottled to
It has
Atzmus,
quality.
it even brings something that's not its own, so to speak. But we all said about a fellow that he can explain something so well that he himself doesn't understand. That's what Eir is. We have one on Eir, Eir can bring our good Zach, but really Yesh. Look, in Kanari Yisrael, some of Vov, the Rebbe Rashab says there, because he said the man wrote out Chomis, so a lot of Yiddish there. So he says, Leib should Rashab and say to the spouse, it's Hatzilis. They're not Hatzilis, it's like Genu Kunsten. It's the Russian name, Genu Kunsten. Because Eir is not a kunst. So they tricks. Yes, and that's what it gets. Create something that's not like you. Don't give us, something that can wander away from you and abandon you and go against. They should create something that could define. Look, it really is the yesod of the fact that, about Nazi, that human beings can go and murder each other, even though be'etzim, the elikus mamish, who can create such a thing? It has to be something that's beyond any comprehension. Because anything would create something that, you know what, you can play a little. But there's a spring, you don't have total freedom. The Eibishter took a gamble, he created a world that can be anarchist, that can defy him and cause damage. We're not talking about the that's what it comes down to. And that only this Yesh could be Megala. Because Natsilis or the illness, Malachim never defy. Animals don't, it's only humans that can do that. Because they have that. Atzmus gave basically a piece of himself to us. That's the bottom line. And do as you wish. That's pretty heavy. That's why the Tanya says, the Reish Shamelech, you have the power. You can put it in the right place or in the wrong place.
When he says Eisa Shalom and Mimah, I mean, even the Malachim are holding each other. all the time. If it wouldn't be Asa Shalom if it wouldn't be for higher source, then they would
Yeah, but that's like Eres Ateu, but it's not. It's still not.
they would annihilate each other.
But
The biggest expression of Atmos is independence.
And to be, and of course our wisdom is to use independence and not abuse it, basically. What time is it?
You have to finish those.
Yeah, we'll finish those because I promised not to speak to the students.
What time?
So,
10:15.
yeah.
Okay, perfect.
10:15.
Perfect.
They're going to
It's 10:15.
they're going to the Rebbe's room, so that's so until they get together, it's all right. When I start hearing buzzing, I'll know that. I'll know 15 minutes.
You explained them Irele Kena.
Yeah.
Hey.
Oh, so now this concludes with this.
Not these guys that make the perfect experience.
I don't know. I'm sure once you post something on COL, you get a lot of comments.
No.
L'chein yesh b'in habriya shnei hafchim. So we have two hafchim, now we have two opposites in the Bria. This is very bordik to us, as they start to say. That the Yisavas Sorach Liz b'chinas kiruv b'chinas shayach ayin ala yesh. On one hand, the Yisavas has to be some type of closeness. Something has to create it. So it has to have some type of closeness. Like that's what you're saying that. The ayin has to get close to the yesh to make it happen. Remember, this is because the statements were created al piseichel. Could have done it not
The
that
other
way.
way,
Yeah. And the opposite, and at the same time, he did it in a way that is b'derech helen behester habeir manivra. The creator is concealed from the nivra. Shazel liyah shazel keich einsif. How could this possible be? How could you do things like I said before? You can, as humans, you can appoint somebody to go do a job. You tell him do it your way. But somewhere you're paying him or you're whatever, you have some connection to him. And you're not really giving him total independence. It's ultimately an extension to some
At one point you have a connection with it, that's what you're trying to say.
yeah, and that remains.
Yeah.
You know. But here you have a thing that is creating it. There's no question, nothing in existence comes from a beta. But the beta completely concealed himself to the point where the nivra does not have any relation. It's completely distant, infinitely distant. So how is this possible? Because it's coming from the Keich Einsef. Interesting. So he's adding another element that proves that this is ain't safe.
What the fact it's impossible in there.
The opposites. See, in this occasion, it doesn't say the two opposites. It just says the fact that we have yesh. It's saying here the fact that that itself is Keich Einsef. Okay. Right. Now we're getting this is Ir Elokeinu. So essentially explain what Ir Elokeinu is, how it came to be, the multitude, the godless beta that you see in all of this. Should be Ir Elokeinu. Now he's going to go back to the beginning. But this is how we understand godless Hashem. When a person meditates, contemplates on all these details, the goals and this is Psukkah de Zimra. I should have told this to me a few years ago. That's Psukkah de Zimra. All the discussion about all the Nivroim and the different elements of them is all about bringing out the godless It's Ir Elokeinu.
It's Nehi, Chagas, and Chagas. It's the Shemana Esther, Chagas.
Right. Just fell out. How'd that happen?
No, he's saying includes this chagas.
How do you do this?
It must be way down. Yeah, way down.
How do you do this?
Pick up.
We can figure out Atzmas, but we can't figure out this. I promise now you put it out. We need your help here.
Do the makeup.
This thing is gone. Alle Seiten. There you go.
Yeah.
Just like that. Okay. So he's been all of this. This is all mavur by Psukkah Zimra. Yispal benafshe. When you contemplate on all of this, Psukkah Zimra, that's all explained. Psukkah Zimra. Yispal benafshe. You become yispal.
Affected.
It's more than affected.
Impressed.
Impresses you. Yeah, but me'aid. Very much impresses. Al gdulas yispal benafshe. Now the nefesh becomes nispal, becomes so affected and so impressed on the greatness and remus and the exaltation of Hashem, be'inyan ha'isavus, in how He created existence. V'yiyai there's a kiruv nafshe shemiskarav me'ed al elokus, and this causes a kiruv nafshe that his nefesh should feel close, very close to elokus, to godliness. U'kamoy came be'inyan v'ata mechayas kulam. That's the inyan of hisavus. Now he's giving another example of this is all. Remember Yanika, the mechin of Yanika. The next thing is how that you give life to everything. This is the Savos. The first time is Savos. Yeah. And now that all the time, everything, there's constant, there's yesh er v'chayes aliki ha-machaya. That everything has energy and life, divine energy and life that gives it, that sustains it. And the ikir, the primary force in existence, is not the table; it's the chayes that gives it, is the energy that gives it life. Means basically is bonus here, and specifically when you contemplate on the efen, on the way that this divine energy is mislabish, manifests. It's in the form of a tzimtzum. It's concealed. It's concentrated. And the way this Eid Eliki, each world, is tailored. The Eid Eliki fits exactly into each world according to that elam. That through all of this will create a love that you'll desire Elikus and the Gili Elikus, because you're connecting and realizing that this is not what I see, what I'm attached to. Elam Haza is not the main thing. This is just a glove. Here you're seeing the hand inside the glove. So you want to get close to the hand. You want to get close to that which put it. You don't want to just have to do with the external side of it. You want to know what you want to be connected, and you love and desire the thing that put it there. This is Meichen Dianika, the mind of Yanika, the second stage in the Gadlush. This is not just Heskem. This is not just Meidim. This is already, there's a Gili HaMeichin, see, Meichin and Midas. There's a Gili of intellect and Gili HaMidas. Umashanikri Yanika. So if that's the case, why is it called Yanika? Yanika means, what does it mean? To wean, nursing. But nursing means it's a very narrow stream. It's not a flood. It's a Yanika. It's a word for it. It's like a very concentrated Yanika. It's concentrated, yeah. Because when you have these galus of love, when the love is revealed, the meichin are concealed. And you only have a little of the meichin in the midah. One second. And this is Yanika, because Yanika means you don't have the etzem. You only have a reflection of it.
In other words, you're yearning from the
source,
the world,
or from his bonus, yeah,
which is yearning from.
But the thing is, when you feel the feeling of attraction to it, or being impressed, or you're drawn to it, the meichin is not in full glory. You're only feeling a reflection of it because you thought about it, so it brought you to this feeling. Let's continue. Let's see what he says more specifically. The since it's the contemplation is in the divine energy that shayach to welt, the bederach klaus beginnen sameichen shayachem elamidas. Since this is in other words, what he's saying is the tools you use are commensurate with what you're actually experiencing. Since you're not meichen, that's not shayach. You're talking about a lakuz that's already connected to worlds, which really means it's meichen the way it's connected to existence, because midas is connected to existence. This hasaga is very much in the levushi hasaga. It's very grounded in the garments of understanding. hamachrichim u'machayov me'echshehu kach. Because everything we spoke about is a very logical process. It's not. We're not talking here abstraction to understand the nature of atzmus that's higher than Welt. You're talking about understanding von Welt, like the Rambam says, through looking at the Welt. Here you're talking about, you see a big world around you. You see Marabu Masecha. You see Magadlu Masecha. You see Atam Achayas Kulam, etc., etc. From there you extrapolate. In other words, you're not thinking, it's not a concentration on a godly concept. You're not learning, let's say, a sugya in whatever, Chassidus or Chassidus. I don't want to say Nigla, because Nigla is also Welt. But let's say a sugya. Right. Yeah. So you're looking at Welt, and from Welt you're coming to the Beira. You're looking at the painting.
That's the Midas part of it.
Yeah. So you're looking at the painting, from there you're coming to see the artist. So that is already limited. You're not talking about the artist, the etzem, how he is on his own. You're talking how he is a creator of the creation.
Like he says in the beginning, Gadlus Hashem be'etzem ein oni yichel lahas
Right.
kach mekulasov. That's the puller.
Okay, so therefore, the liyash is burns be'er lekid. So it's making, yeah. That's why, because this hasaga is all in yonim that are shaykh bin yonim sichum amachrich mechayov meichshu kach. So you're not saying I relate to God as God is. I'm saying I see a world. So I must know from that it didn't come on its own. Someone put it here. You see so many things, so you know there's a God that the Eibishter must be so great. So it's basically dvarim amachrichim, sichlim amachrichim mechayov mechshuka, k'meshakosum mokamaka berech. Therefore, because it's such a izbonus, you're not talking about a izbonus, an abstract izbonus about a lakus higher than world. V'alkein agili k'meshu ba'mechen ein ameir belev. And therefore the gili, the way it is really in the mechen on their own, it does not come down in the heart. V'yisedus hamidus hein rak b'ha'bechein levad. The yisedus of the midas is just from the bechein, which means the result. In other words, you're seeing a lakus from the result of a lakus, not the lakus as a lakus is. What's the result? A great world, a big world, a life. You see health. Now we're not talking about someone who's blinded and doesn't relate b'chal to the Eibishter and is just a selfish person. We're talking about somebody who appreciates, he appreciates that you have health. The Eibishter gave gesund, a life, etc., or a meal or food. So that causes you. So in other words, your relationship to Elikus is from the bechein of Elikus, what Elikus does for you or for the world.
And even this is bonus that it has nice achim, that it's mechava.
Yeah, but it's also.
But it's based on what you see.
But it's based on what you see. You see a vel that doesn't feel Elikus, and you know that there had to be a kiruv. So it's all coming from the observation of what you see. That's why we kept saying Pesukah de Zimre. You're talking about looking at the Welt and coming to these conclusions. So the Welt is bringing you to it. Ketzid Yovel Avosi, Pashat his bonus in Elam Haza. So it's nothing. It's just. But what you're getting in return is a meichen shaykh lemidus. You're getting. Therefore, you don't have meichen be'etzim. You have it how it's connected to the Welt. Let's put it this way. One second. Look, if you really go into the discussion of atzmus, that's not what he's saying here. That's meichen. This is unika. Here you're seeing from the yesh, you understand there's such a thing. Before it was tam heskim, made him. But here's there's the mashal. I once heard it. Same as Rab Shmuel, from Gershon Paharan.
This is a reaction. The reaction.
The midas is the ikar here.
But I'm saying, where is he just?
No, because I'll tell you, when you see, we're talking about a healthy person who's bottle. You see that God blesses you with health every morning. I'm saying, you see, let's analyze the Rambam. The Rambam says, Ketzid Yovei. How do you come to Avei Yireh through bimizbein about the world? Let's start personally. Every morning you wake up, God gave you another day, and you're conscious. I'm not talking about a person who's not conscious of it. You're cognizant. Gave you another day. Gesund. Gave you family life. Gives you food to eat. With benching. You come to a conclusion. That there's something here that's giving you life. Do you understand it in its fullest sense? No. But then you see that this thing must be yesh ma'ayin. So therefore you understand there's hofch, and all the details that he said here. So that brings you, if you're a normal person, to be impressed, and therefore a love that you want to connect to this source. So there's a love. But it's a meichen that's connected to all. It all started from you, right? So the meichen is there, but it's only a reflection, tznika, of the meichen. When we learn the meichen, you'll see meichen is where you just go straight into and understand this creator, and you're not even thinking about your life. It makes no difference. It's not because you're benefiting. This, at the end of the day, is still about you. It's just the lakus in you, which is great because most people don't even have that. But that's the second level of Meichen. I mean, in Aveda, you could train a person first to acknowledge.
You do the davening. You're acknowledging first.
And, right, exactly.
Then Psukkah de Zimra.
I once heard from Rab Shmuel, Hashem Rab Shmuel, he heard from Gershon Ber Paharer, which is, goes back to the big ones, that said like this, a moshel, which I think very fits here to the 3 Eber Yunika Meichen. In this it says like this, that 3 people were looking at a painting, a beautiful painting of a farm. Well, first painter said, the first observer said, this must be a great farmer, because it makes such a farm so beautiful. So he's a great farmer. The second one said, no, the exact opposite. It must be a great artist. And we can't understand him, because the fact that he can envision a farm like this means he's brilliant, but there was completely no relationship with it. And the third one said, no, he's even higher than that. He's so great that he can be like a farmer and see it exactly like a farmer does. Not because he conceived of it. He said there's a difference between a malas seviv and atzmus. That the first one sees Welt, the Eberster must be a good, he's a good architect. I mean, a great architect, but it's all the fierach. We have a lot of architects, the Eberster is the greatest architect. And that's it. That's like essentially pantheism. Like Spinoza, God is nature, nature is God. Mamal. The second one says, no, pumfaket. God is so distant, he's able to make something, but he has no connection to it. He's just great because he's able to conceive of a farm. And the third one says that Beide, he shalei be'erech, but at the same time he's able to put himself in mamish be like a farmer, be slapshus. So in other words, the first one sees the elikus, that the wisdom of God in the world. He understands the world. The second one says he's so distant. And the third one says he's so distant, absolutely distant, and still, because he's so distant, he has the power to bring it into existence like that. Okay, hold on a second.
I could relate to the fact of being blown away by the Abish's greatness. But why do you always think?
This is the
This
thing.
week is called Cheshvan, huh?
Over here, we should do something here.
Thursday night.
Do it here in the house.
Do it here, no problem.
Do it
Do you want a little variety? Go
What about
somewhere else.
7/7? Is that it? What's that?
Yeah, Mendel.
7/7,
You guys are ready for me?
I know.
Okay, where are you, in front of 770? Okay, I'm coming in, I'll be there in a few minutes. I'm just finishing something and I'll be there in a few minutes.
You can't let him know?
Okay? Can you wait? You have a few more minutes.
So whenever they don't do it in 7/7.
A few minutes you can wait? Okay. Okay, great. Okay. So let's finish this Pedic. Let's finish this Pedic.
Okay, so it's unique.
So in other words, what I'm trying to say is that you could see, like we said here, that in truth, if you're really b'mizbeinin, you come to realize that anyone that can create such a world, yesh ma'ayin, that's why the yesh comes in, you realize that he's really not part of this world, he's beyond it. So you realize, but the beauty is that the Eibush is both beyond existence and also can be close to existence. That's the thing. That's the key to the interface at the end of the day. Because if you have only one or the other, you don't have the interface again. Okay. You were confused by the mashal. I think it's it's an unbelievable mashal. Look, basically, you see a painting. What do you know about the painter? You know nothing. Doesn't mean he doesn't even mean he's related to his painting. He just is a brilliant painter. He made a painting. If someone made the painting of the Alter Rebbe, he knew who the Alter Rebbe was, or appreciated what the Alter Rebbe stood for. So you see a painting, you don't know what the painter is about at all. Painter could have other things in his milas that you don't even know. That's like the Eibush created the world. We don't know. But the greatness is that the Eibush said, no, in the world that you look at, I put myself in there. And that's the whole point. That even in the yesh, he put himself. The fact that you feel you're a yesh, I put my personality, that I'm a yesh, that has no sibur. In other words, you study, you start seeing, and that's the biggest chiddush. Because it seems a lot easier to say the Eibush Shol Shlei Berach, he put a world there. It's like, but he's beyond it. A remus where he doesn't have any connection with it. Or the other way around, that he only has a connection and there's nothing beyond. So to say both is ultimately the key. Okay, so that's why it's called Yenika. So the Asog Zui Belevush Asog Hazog Matvorim Achrichim, Valkein Hagili Kameshu B'Mechen Ein Meir Belev Yiseder Simin Rak Ma B'Chein Levad. So therefore, the love is not a love to God because he's God. It's a love to God because he created such a beautiful universe. So you don't really have Meichen, real Meichen, you have Meichen Yanike. You have the reflection of the Meichen that's connected to the greatness of what he created. Be'ir Elokeinu. Emesu Gadol, Be'ir Elokeinu. There's no Eir Elokeinu, we cannot have any connection to that godless. Because less machshava did.
Based on what you said, Mamala, Goy's Mamala, that's...
I probably think that even the third level a Goy can have a connection to, but not in the same... Yeah, we'll discuss it. Yeah. I have problems even that Jews should do. How many Jews are doing this? That's also... that's what I say. Let's deal with the...
What we got?
That's nice.
Mal Kalam is pretty good madrega. Okay, so... V'hainu l'fisha klolos ha'asoga... Let me just, because I have to rush a bit. V'hainu l'fisha klolos ha'asoga yashayecha el hamidus. The bottom line is, because this klolos ha'asoga, the klolos of this contemplation is shayech to midus. Levad. Let's go back to the child, if you remember. The first level child, Ibur, we talked about. But Yenika, he's already getting chayis, that's coming into him, right? Feeding and so on. He already has some seichel, but still midas control his life. Even if you can teach a child, let's say a 12-year-old, not bar mitzvah, a 12-year-old, 11-year-old, that there's an eibishter, and you have to have discipline, and so on. Bottom line, he's still a bal midas. He's still not, you can't expect him to be responsible for his behavior. So anything you do explain to him is still around, who's explaining to him? His parents. His parents tell him, it's your parents, you listen. You're disciplined or whatever, your teachers. It's still around because the people that, it's all about you really at the end of the day. It's still about a child that is still still connected to his feelings and sense of things. He doesn't have an abstract, idea that there's an Eibishter and so on and so forth. He wouldn't come to it on his own. Remember he said before, it's not his teva.
But why is it unique again? Why isn't I understand
unique because the meichen is not really then. The meichen is only enough to train him, so to speak.
Unique is on the meichen part, not on anything. The midas is full expression of the midas is.
Yeah, no, but the midah is also midah of the child. Remember? Okay. And we should close our sugi. Yeah. Close our sugi hashayacha el midas. Remember, it's like the midas are being gained from the meichen. Only in a form, right. Lavad v'hi ba'ira leki hashayacha el elmas. It's all about it. Umalubish b'levushi hasoga. The kol zeh haba hatalia. See, that's the key. It's all haba hatalia. Because there's bonuses in Welt, in Alakus Muslabish be'elmas, so therefore the meichen is unique to the midas. It's essentially, what the level that you're relating to, that's how you receive it. However, for example, if you, an adult, sit down, you start talking, you're not just talking what God does for you. You want to talk about the Eibishter himself. So then, right away, you're dealing also with you can go into a meichen that's not connected to the midas. Quite that way. Al kain teildus hamidas hum bechein levad. So therefore, the birth of these midas is from the bechein levad, like you said before, from the result. Al kain zeu bechinis yanika v'hainu raka ora levad. And therefore, this is yanika that's only a reflection. L'chein be'emes hamidah ne'eldem azeh midah murgeshes. And therefore, in truth, the midah, the emotion that's born from this, is amidah murgeshes. You feel it. The midah is very dominant. What is the dominant feeling? Is the emotion. And nevertheless, it has er v'chayis. Do you remember when he spoke earlier that the tzura that the meichen gives is beikon er v'chayis? Remember he said that er. It's not the case. It's an er v'chayis of the yeah. There's a few broken back. So the er v'chayis, the meichen.
The meaning was there before, but it's just directing it. So
Yeah. One second. Somewhere before he said that ikar meichen affects the midas.
What problem does the midas? The meichen is just a. What are you saying now?
you direct.
Okay, right, very good. So good. The bechein, that's the reason for the midah.
That's the meichen of it.
Yeah. It still hovers over the midah, Mamayla from above. In other words, the dominant feeling is the midah. The midah is connected to the cause. The bechein is the result of understanding how the kus is, what the kus does for you. And nevertheless, you also have the meichen still remains above, so it's unique because it's not there b'pnimius.
He's dissecting the chlishes. How you pearl this chlishes?
Right, exactly.
You have to go in, you have to be on top, you have to... And
Exactly.
that's how you...
You're training an untamed animal here. You're taming an animal, so he has now the midah. The mind remains in control, so to speak, from a distance, mamayla. Because even when you have the spilus, nirgush behelam asoga shemamen nispal. So when a person feels attracted and drawn to that gives you life, or gives the world life, and all of that, so that his bonanus is still there, because that's where it came from. But at the moment, you're really relating to it more because it's shaykh to elemist, more to you.
Actually, where it came from is the midah. The midah gave birth in a way to the meichen of it because he sees this. He has this spilus world around him.
Yeah, but it doesn't put it. It doesn't put it that way. But it really came the other way because the midah on its own didn't have any feeling yet.
No, but you were spoiled from.
But his bonus awakened this in the midah. 1 second. So this is men is spoil midah. V'zeu pel habitl b'hamidah, and that's how this chachmeh, the meichen pearls the bitl in the midah. So the midah, in other words, is still, it's talking about midas detayu, it still has its intensity, but it's beginning to be tamed. The hariba midah yachaliyas yinik, the midah yachaliyas yinik, k'meshkos v'loy yechpetz. The midah could still go the other way. Lo yechpetz, but his galus liba the yachaliyas yipul behepach chas v'shalom.
Again, because the midah rules.
It's not, the midah is not changed. Tonight, it has not been changed. Fundamentally, okay. In other words, this level of his bonanus brings definitely a draw, but it's not airtight because the midah was not completely transformed to be or bottled to the meichen. It's only a certain level of bittul, and therefore the midah still can go another way, which is why. So the hergesh hasaga keeps a certain control. Let's talk about a child. Parents tell a child, it's Shabbos today. On Shabbos we don't do whatever you want, whatever. Or your friends, you have to share. So the child understands. We're not talking about a baby now. We're talking the child understands. But sof kosof, like the story with the cat. The child is still a Baal Midas, right? The child is still a Baal Midas. So as much as you explain to him, as much as he understands, you share, because he has to share. I'm just giving you a simple example. He's yet developed, he's a mature adult that you can just trust and say, you know what, he's from now on forever going to not be selfish. It's not the case. Or talk about this. Someone understands that Elokus creates the world, but it doesn't become you yet, because it's only a level that's l'fe'erech you. So it can't really, hasn't...
With the child understanding that if he shares, he gets something also.
Yeah, or something like that, right? But you can't guarantee it because the midah is still, he's still a Baal Midas. It's only let's put it this way. Yeah, that's good. The midah derech of the seichel here is still bar korchach, basically. It's not.
That's why he has to be on top.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, you still need to watch.
He has
to hover on top. He has to watch.
Listen, I'm sure when you learn the next Perek and Meichen, and by contrast, we'll be able to see this a lot better. Then you can really analyze it better. Okay. So we conclude here Perek Reish and Vav. We have our work cut out for us. Okay. This is. I could say the kids if you want. Okay. V'yanike hu shamidas in al pitam v'das. Okay. Yanike is where the midas are pitam v'das, as we said. It's not mile mitam v'das. V'izbonas b'gedulas Hashem. Ma rabba masecha, ma gadol masecha. So it's in contemplating on the godless of the goodness of Hashem. And also that it's B'keich Einseif, which means, and therefore it has both opposites, close and distant. For who is bonus ba'aras alakisha be'elamis. This is all his bonus. Havalakus is in elamis. U'meiraka b'chein belev, and only the b'chein of that his bonus comes into the heart. So it's a unique into the heart. It still has some air. And also the air of the mechen is still merach hovers bittel. But it's not nicht air alone and mechen alone. So in other words, when you finish with the mechen disciplining all the levels, then you can start going back to meches timah, and we make our way back. But you can't get there. You can't get no ticket in until you get to this. This is this. Right? Okay, so we conclude Perek Reish Vav, and we're going to have a pleasant week.